Chapter 4366. After a while, Luin calmed himself down. The more he wanted to kill, the more he had to endure the loneliness. The ninth base had already been defeated, and the humans could not afford to lose again. He had fooled around with Zhizong, seduced Xianling, and cooperated with Red Hero. He was working hard, and there would be a day when he would settle the score. He looked back. Why did you run so far? 25 blinked. Well, I wanted to fart. I was afraid it would stink you. Luin was speechless. He put away the 2 pieces of armor. 15 out of the 100 seals had passed, and there was still a long way to go. He teleported and headed straight for Xiang City. He wanted to see which side Guardian Pan was guarding and see if there were any traces left behind. However, he couldn't find anything even after circling the city. There were countless traces of battle in every direction of the city. Too much time had passed and it was impossible to tell who was who. Finally, Luin entered the city. He had been worried that he wouldn't be able to leave. He had been worried about this and that, but for some reason he wasn't worried anymore. His ancestors had sworn to protect Xiang City with their lives. What did he have to fear? He would control Xiang City. He would. Luin had changed after entering the city. He was no longer an ant but rather a bird. He soared above the city and looked down on it. He could see it clearly now. It was huge, with 2 main streets intersecting and 4 city gates in 4 different directions. Originally, there had been a gate in each direction, but he couldn't see it from the outside. Were the 3 gates sealed? It would be easy to leave if he turned into a bird. Xiang City was a reflection of a person's inner self. In the past, Luin had been an ant with aspirations higher than the heavens. He also possessed strength that surpassed the comprehension of ordinary people, but he had been too small to see the world clearly. Now that he had become a bird, he could see the world clearly. His will had become even more resilient. He had broken free from the shackles of the earth and spread his wings to soar. However, it was not without danger. Arrows flew past him and he dodged them by a hair's breadth. He dodged them and swooped down. Someone had just shot at him, and although their arrows were not fast, he was still an ordinary bird and had almost been shot to death. Fortunately, he had dodged quickly. He hid under the eaves and looked at the streets in front of him. Compared to ants, birds were more eye-catching and dangerous. How was he supposed to control Xiang City? Was he supposed to turn into a human? Only a human could control a city. Yes, become a human. However, he was a human. Now that he had become a bird, how could he become a human again? His inner self changed according to his state of mind. His state of mind was still not enough. Since he had transformed into a bird, he would be able to see Xiang City clearly. The scenery that he couldn't see when he was an ant could be seen by a bird. He was in no hurry to leave. The birds flew past the eaves and into the distance. He wanted to find an opportunity to take control of Xiang City. Although the possibility was to transform into a human, what would happen after that? How should one control it? This was also a problem. There were also many creatures that Che had tossed into Xiang City, and Luin wanted to find them so that he could understand Che through them. Soon he left Xiang City with an insect. As soon as they left Xiang City, the insect transformed into a creature that Luin had never seen before. It looked up at the sky and let out an excited howl before being slapped by Luin. It then stood to the side respectfully. This guy was a little stupid. Or had he become stupid after staying in Xiang City for so long? Luin had discovered the bug because it was too obvious. It had been lying under the eaves and had stood up to look outside. Who had ever seen an ordinary bug stand up and look outside? When Luin had arrived as a bird, this thing had actually run away so quickly that it couldn't be anything other than a living creature. Now that he had brought it out, it was actually so excited. The outside world was much more dangerous than Xiang City. Tell me who you are. You only have one chance or I'll toss you in again, Luin threatened. Compared to death, this creature that had been in Xiang City all this time should be more afraid of going in. Sure enough, after hearing Lu Yin's threat, the creature didn't hesitate to tell him everything it knew. Luin listened for a while, but it was pointless. This creature hadn't been tossed in alone by Che. It had been sleeping and had turned into an insect the moment it opened its eyes. Fortunately, it had fallen under the eaves and hadn't been disturbed by anyone or any natural predators, which had allowed it to survive until now. It didn't know anything and there was only one Eve in the world. It had tried to escape once, but it had almost been trampled to death. After that, it had given up and accepted its fate. It was nothing more than a small fry in a civilization. Luin was disappointed, but he still closed Mount Supreme and continued. He entered Xiang City again and brought out another creature after a while. It was a chicken, and Luin found it inconceivable that it had been able to survive until now. A chicken had actually managed to survive until now. Thank you for saving me, my lord. Thank you for saving me. I was adopted. Fortunately, the owner was kind and didn't eat me. He only raised me as a pet. My poor brother was eaten just like that. Luin looked at it. Who's your brother? Another chicken. They really were brothers, even their inner aspects were the same. Speaking of which, what kind of inner aspect would turn into a chicken? This fellow didn't know anything and hadn't even reached the eternal realm. It didn't even have the qualifications to know the truth, so it had been tossed into Xiang City. This was Che's experiment, but it was a disaster for these creatures. Perhaps this was a civilization. Luin entered Xiang City again and brought out more creatures. 10 years had passed and he had brought out many creatures, but they were just a drop in the ocean compared to the enormous city. During these 10 years he had learned many things about Xiang City, the most famous of which was that it was haunted. At night, Xiang City would be haunted. In reality, it was the creatures that had turned into all kinds of creatures and even objects that were running around. Some knew that they could leave by touching the city gates, while others didn't. Che's experiments seemed to tell some creatures the truth, but not others. He had tried many different things. This caused Xiang City to be haunted at night, and only when there were many people would dare to go out. Sometimes there would even be curfews. The creatures that Luin brought out were all different. During these 10 years, he had turned into a bird and cautiously circled under the eaves of the various houses. Just like that bug, he would be easily targeted if he flew just a little higher. One day he was sunbathing when he heard a commotion followed by the crying of a child. He was dumbfounded when he saw a child crawl out of the latrine and run into a room. What followed was another round of chaos. Luin sympathized with the poor child. He spread his wings and flew high. Don't smoke him. Not long after, the child fell in again. The adults scolded him and the child's cries gave him a headache. Mother, I didn't fall in on purpose. You're still denying it? That latrine is used by our family. Your grandfather and father have been there since they were young, so why haven't they fallen in? You fell in twice in a row. I'll beat you to death. Mother, I didn't. A few days later the child fell in again. Luin was speechless. No one would believe him if he said that he hadn't done it on purpose. Another round of scolding followed. However, the family still demolished the latrine and rebuilt it. Some teachers said that it had violated the feng shui, and the child said that a stone had blinded his eyes and caused him to fall in. Thus, the surrounding stones were all thrown away. In the dead of the night, outside the outhouse, among a pile of rocks, a rock moved and rolled in a certain direction. A sharp claw descended from the sky and pressed down on the stone. Luin looked at the stone beneath his feet and felt that something was wrong. So this was the reason why the child kept falling in. Whose inner form was a stone? And who was unlucky enough to become a stone in the latrine? This stone had been one of the stones used to build the latrine. How unlucky. It could have moved on its own, but it had been stuck in the latrine for who knew how long. The stone trembled under the bird's claws, trying to break free. Luin grabbed the stone and flew towards the city gates. It was especially quiet tonight. At this moment, the stone was excited. It had finally escaped from the latrine. Only the heavens knew how it had survived all these years. It had turned into a stone and been stuck in the latrine, passing day after day with great difficulty. It could have moved, but because it was stuck, it couldn't get out. It could only grind day and night, grinding away at the surrounding stones until a crack appeared. Then, when the child went to the latrine, it would sprinkle some stones and dust into his eyes. That was the only way to force the family to rebuild the latrine. Otherwise, who knew how long it would have taken for it to escape? It was too bitter, too bitter. Who else could have suffered more than it? Now that it was finally out, why was this bird grabbing onto it? And judging from the direction, it was the city gates? No, it wasn't an ordinary bird. Who are you? Why are you helping me? The stone asked. Luin flew past it and rushed towards the city gates. The stone was excited as it watched the gates get closer and closer. I'm finally out. Touch leaf. Outside Xiang City, Luin recovered and looked to the side. A dark-skinned stone monster had appeared. It wasn't small and exuded an oppressive aura. Its strength was at the eternal realm. Luin was delighted. He had finally caught an eternal realm beast. At this moment, the stone monster beside him was also happy. It was finally free. They all sighed in relief. Then it lowered its head and looked at Luin. Luin looked up at it, but he couldn't see its head. This stone monster didn't have a head, but it had 4 limbs and eyes. It was very strange and its gaze didn't seem very friendly. The stone monster raised its arm and slammed it down at Luin. Luin raised a brow and stepped out to avoid the attack. Boom. There was a loud bang and the gates of Xiang City shook. Hey, be careful. Don't slam the gates down. If it touches you, you'll have to go back in again, Luin reminded. The stone monster panicked, and it hurriedly stepped into outer space, away from the city gates. It then looked at Luin and its eyes curved into crescents. It seemed to be smiling, but its eyes were filled with ferocity and viciousness. I should be thanking you. You were the one who brought me out. Luin sized up the stone monster. It was an eternal realm beast, but not by much. I have some things to ask you. Sure. Ask away. The stone monster stared at Luin, its thoughts unknown. Luin asked, How did you enter Xiang City? The stone monster's eyes widened, and it raised a hand to slap Luin. This slap was so powerful that it shattered the void and left behind a dark scar. Luin raised a brow. He wasn't very obedient, so he raised a hand and grabbed at it. Bang! The void trembled as countless cracks spread out like lightning. The stone monster's gaze was savage at first, but then it was filled with shock and disbelief. Its arm had been grabbed. End of chapter. Chapter 4367. Luin grabbed the stone monster's arm with one hand and slowly raised his eyes. I don't think I have offended you, stone monster. The stone monster looked at Luin in disbelief. How could it be? How could his arm be grabbed? With such a powerful blow, this guy was obviously not an eternal realm expert. It was impossible. Lu Yin's mouth curled up and he kicked out while freezing the void. This kick hit the stone monster hard, but because of the freezing void, it was not kicked away by the huge force. As a result, cracks appeared on its body. He had completely taken the blow. The stone monster wailed and saw Lu Yin lift his foot again. It hurriedly begged, Stop fighting, stop fighting. Lu Yin sneered, Do you think you can stop fighting just because you say so? After saying that, he kicked out again, and this kick almost shattered the stone monster's body. The stone monster wailed again, it's my fault, this powerhouse, it's my fault, please stop fighting. Lu Yin let go and the stone monster kept retreating. Covering its broken body, its eyes were full of pain. This guy was obviously not an eternal life. How could he be as strong as a monster? His strength was useless, and his vitality and eternal matter could not stop his kick at all. What was going on? This was a scoundrel, but how could a scoundrel be so strong? The stone monster was puzzled. Ever since it encountered that guy, life was full of tragedies. It slowly retreated. Lu Yin's voice came, If you retreat again, I won't be polite. The stone golem stopped, and its eyes curved into crescents as it forced a smile at Lu Yin. It tried its best to sound as gentle as possible. Hey, powerhouse, that was a misunderstanding and I still haven't come back to my senses. Right, you saved me, right? Thank you, powerhouse. Lu Yin looked at the stone monster. As an eternal life, you are so weak and pitiful. The strength of this stone monster was similar to that of the eternal life realm monster. It was estimated that it was similar to the eternal life realm that swallowed the sealed civilization. They belonged to the lowest level of eternal life. The stone monster was speechless. It was not like this, and it was looked down upon. If it weren't for that guy who shattered its weapon, would a scoundrel have the chance to be arrogant? The strength of their race was concentrated on weapons. Why did you attack me? Lu Yin asked. The stone monster said carefully, I haven't recovered yet. Lu Yin smiled, I can still throw you in. The stone monster was shocked. It would rather die than go in again. If it went in again, it would turn into stone. Who knew where the stone would be this time? If you were at the bottom of the latrine pit, just the thought of it was terrifying. Honorable expert, please don't do that. I didn't offend you. How about this? I'm willing to serve you for 10,000 years in return. After all, I'm an eternal being and can protect your civilization. Please give me a chance. Eternal life means nothing to me. I'll ask and you'll answer. If you say something wrong, I'll toss you in. I have my ways to verify it, so don't make a mistake. Yes, I will definitely tell you. I won't hide anything. Why did you attack me? Because you looked the same as the creature in the city. I thought you were on the same side. How did you get in? Caught. Who caught you? Lu Yin stared at the stone golem. The stone monster said bitterly, No, I didn't see it clearly. I only remember a sword like a string of planets. Lu Yin immediately thought of the celestial sword, as it was Clear's weapon. It had once chased a meteorite into the consciousness universe, but it had been shattered. Clear had then gone to the consciousness universe to retrieve the celestial sword. What did you find after entering Xiang City? What did you find? You didn't stay in the latrine all the time, did you? The stone monster fell silent. Lu Yin frowned. Seems like it's useless. As he spoke, a karmic spiral appeared at his fingertips and shot towards the stone monster. The stone monster could not see karma, but it instinctively dodged. "Try moving again," Luin threatened. The stone monster did not dare to move and allowed the karmic spiral to penetrate it. It was confused at first, but then it suddenly thought of something and was shocked. This is karma? As an eternal realm, it was possible for it to not see karma, but it was impossible for it to be completely ignorant. Luin said, "I hope you're not lying to me. Otherwise you can continue staying in the latrine." The stone monster hurriedly said, "You asked. I'm not lying. There's still a chance. Say something valuable." "I was the one who mobilized the Nightwalker." Luin was stunned. "What Nightwalker?" The stone monster was shocked. "You don't know?" "I don't." The stone monster regretted it. If it had known, it would not have said it. But now that it had said it, there was no room for it to hide anything. Helpless, it slowly opened its mouth and revealed its greatest value. It had not been captured by itself, but rather by an entire civilization. This was something that Luin was aware of, as he had previously brought out a few similar stone monsters. It was just that he had not paid much attention to it, as it would not have been surprising if Clear had tossed an entire civilization into Xiang City. What was surprising was that this stone monster's civilization had a unique method of communication. Within Xiang City, the stone monster could not escape and was stuck in the latrine, but it could use its unique method to mobilize all of its civilization's creatures and activate the Nightwalker several times. The so-called Nightwalker involved all sorts of creatures attacking the city gates at night. Of course, the results were tragic and they were all incinerated. However, this was just the stone monster's experiment. The Nightwalker was not the main point. The main point was that the stone monster could use its unique method to contact the creatures of its civilization within Xiang City. This was what it believed to be its greatest value. It did not know why it had been thrown into Xiang City, but being able to do such a thing meant that it was very valuable. If you can contact the creatures of your civilization, why don't you let them save you? I'm the only eternal realm ancestor in my civilization. If they see me stuck in the latrine, I'd rather die. The stone monster was very resolute and it paused for a moment. Besides, I'm confident that I can slowly grind my way out. What if you fall into the latrine? Luin asked. The stone monster was speechless. Even then it could still escape. At the very least it would not be stuck there. Luin looked at the stone monster's karmic past and saw that it had activated its thousand forms Nightwalker. It was silent and it seemed to be mobilizing something. There was also a cat running past the outhouse. It was definitely a creature from the same civilization as the stone monster. The stone monster could have let the cat save it. But from another perspective, it might not have just been unable to put down its pride. It might also have been afraid of being assassinated. If a creature of its civilization threw it into a river, it would never be able to turn over. Its life was still in its own hands. Time continued to pass and Luin looked at the stone monster's karma. He saw the heavenly forged sword descend, and he also saw the stone monster's true strength. It was still not strong enough, or else its weapon would not have been shattered by the heavenly forged sword. However, Clear had been present in that battle. Otherwise, the heavenly forged sword alone would not have been able to defeat an eternal realm. For the next half a year, Luin looked at the stone monster's history of cultivation, including its experience in the latrine. Aside from you, no one else in your civilization can activate the Nightwalker. The stone monster looked at Luin and had a bad feeling. Luin smiled at it, and the Dianjiang platform hell appeared not far away. He kicked the stone monster in, increasing its karma first. The stone monster wanted to rush out, but Luin said coldly, "If you dare to move, I'll press you to the bottom of the latrine." The stone monster did not move. Despicable. When the stone monster's karma was completely increased, Luin brought it back to Xiang City. The stone monster begged, "Powerhouse, I'm not hiding anything. Why are you still letting me in?" Luin said, "After you enter at night, use 3 soft sounds as a signal. Find me and I'll put you in a comfortable place. Wait for my command to activate the Nightwalker. If you dare to disobey, I guarantee that you won't be able to leave for the rest of your life." The stone monster still wanted to beg, but it was useless. It was brought to Xiang City. Luin transformed into a bird and hid under the eaves, quietly waiting for night to fall. As the night watchman rang, Luin flew above Xiang City, searching for the 3 soft sounds. He soon found it and it wasn't far. The stone monster was lucky this time and the stone was on the roof. "This place isn't bad. It has a good view and no one will disturb me." The stone monster also felt that this place was not bad. Of course it would be best if it could leave. When do I activate the Nightwalker? Wait for my signal. Don't worry, cooperate with me and you'll be able to leave. Luin grabbed the stone and flew towards the tree. The stone monster was shocked, not knowing where Luin was taking it. It did not want to go to the latrine. In the end, Luin stuck it in the tree's branches. This way the stone monster could not move on its own. The view here was better and no one would disturb it. Otherwise, the stone monster would have rolled towards the city gates in the night, and Luin would not have been able to find it. After Luin left, the stone monster sighed at its bad luck. It had finally escaped from the latrine, and it could have waited until nighttime to leave. It had not expected to be targeted by Luin. Luin did not immediately leave Xiang City. Instead, he stayed there for more than 10 years before leaving. During this time, many more creatures were brought out, but none of them were at the Eternal Realm. Aside from those that Luin had brought out, there were also creatures that had managed to escape from Xiang City with their own abilities. Although they could escape from Xiang City, they could not escape from Lu Yin's grasp. Without reaching the Eternal Realm, Luin could find them with a single thought, even if they fled for thousands of years. He would check on the stone monster from time to time as a warning to prevent the stone monster from contacting other creatures from his own civilization to save it. Luin suddenly thought of selecting a group of people from the 3 universes to enter Xiang City. There were people, animals, and objects in Xiang City. He could not control the people for the time being. Controlling the animals and objects would also be considered controlling Xiang City. When he thought of this, he returned to the human civilization and began his selection. There would definitely be danger and many creatures had died in Xiang City. However, the rewards that accompanied the danger were great. The cultivation world was filled with danger at all times, and as long as the rewards were plentiful, many people would be willing to take the risk. Luin handed this matter over to the sect above the heavens, and it didn't take long for them to arrange for 1,000,000 cultivators to choose from. This was only the Xuanhuan universe. Even more people from the Nina Firmament's universe and the spiritualized universe were willing to enter Xiang City. They were aware of the dangers, but they were more willing to take the risk. This was not enough, and it was far from enough. If they were going to do it, they had to do it big. Not all of them had to be cultivators. Even ordinary people would be fine. After all, even Eternal Realm cultivators would be ordinary in Xiang City. End of chapter. Chapter 4368. Thus, the number of people had increased, with each universe sending out 10 million people. After gathering everyone, Luin brought them to the outskirts of Xiang City, and then, everyone entered. No matter what, they had to try. What did it mean to have 10 million people enter Xiang City? Xiang City was in an uproar. This was different from when Che had captured an entire civilization and thrown it into Xiang City. For example, the stone golem civilization had been completely unprepared at first. And even if they had activated the 1,000 Forms Nightfall, it had been a long time after they had entered Xiang City. By then, many of their creatures had already died. There was no way to command them. Moreover, it was said that an entire civilization had entered Xiang City. This was just a concept. It couldn't possibly be an entire civilization, or else Xiang City would have been filled to the brim long ago. At most, there would only be 1,000,000 creatures. Before entering the city, Luin had reminded everyone not to reveal themselves as long as their lives weren't in danger. He had to find the right opportunity. Most people weren't in danger at first, but even a small portion of people were in danger. Tens of millions of people were still a lot. For example, some people had turned into fish, but the unlucky ones had been caught by fishermen and were about to be cooked. Some people had turned into crickets and were fighting with other crickets. They couldn't win. Others had turned into firewood and were about to be burned. There were too many situations. Even if there were only a few tens of thousands of people, it was enough to cause Xiang City to boil over. Luin had turned into a bird and could see everything clearly. He didn't wait any longer. He sent out a signal. This signal had been agreed upon with everyone before they entered the city. Once the signal was sent out, everyone would move out. At the same time, this signal had also been agreed upon with the stone golem. Following that, a rare scene occurred in Xiang City, an uproar. Chickens, ducks, fish, and even tables and chairs were all on the move as if they had come to life and moved onto the streets. Everyone in Xiang City was stunned, and they all hid in their homes. But what was the point of hiding in their homes? Every house had an animal or object moving, and all of Xiang City seemed to be moving as well. The stone golem was stunned. When had it ever seen such a scene in Xiang City? What was the meaning of this? Were there that many civilized creatures? And they were too cooperative. No one dared to resist. When there were so many of them, resistance was meaningless. Looking at the dancing swords and blades, everyone became even more terrified. Lu Yin constantly changed the signal and commanded everyone to move. He controlled the two streets, and even those who tried to resist were suppressed. At this moment he was the king of Xiang City. Everything else was up to him. However, he still didn't feel like he was in control of Xiang City. Lu Yin continued to soar through the skies, and those who had dared to shoot him before were now trembling in fear, not daring to move. The bird was king. As for the foreign creatures that had entered Xiang City before, they all began to move. They did not know what had happened, but they knew that such a big change was beneficial to them. The leaf that had been pierced by the bamboo hadn't managed to escape. At this moment he was jumping excitedly on a chair. He saw more than one pair of slippers. There was actually a creature that had turned into slippers. Everyone was holed up in their homes, and Xiang City obeyed Lu Yin's orders. Lu Yin tried to give out orders, but it was useless. He didn't feel like he was in control of Xiang City at all. Did he really have to transform into a human? He was disappointed, and he could only command the creatures to head towards the city gate. Some of the creatures had already taken the opportunity to run towards the city gate, but it was useless. There were people guarding the gate. In the history of Xiang City, there had never been such a terrible incident. Xiang City had once belonged to the fifth stronghold, and the fifth stronghold had controlled it. Afterward, it had been controlled by Clear, who had tried all sorts of methods to gain control. He had even tried to use numbers to control the creatures, but it had not been as exaggerated. After all, the creatures that he had thrown in were not from his own civilization and would not listen to his orders. Even now, Lu Yin still did not know what Clear's true form was. Seeing that he could not control Xiang City this way, Lu Yin could only lead everyone away. Everyone in Xiang City hid in their homes and only came out slowly after all the creatures had left. They had just experienced a nightmare. Outside Xiang City there was a huge crowd. Tens of millions of people were being led away from the city gate, and many of them were foreign creatures. They looked at the humans around them and did not dare to move. Chu Songyun, Dan Hong, and the others were standing guard outside. The auras of those below the immortal realm were suppressing them. Even further away were the heaven-carrying immortal and the startled lord. Even if an immortal realm appeared, it would be difficult. Lu Yin was the last to leave Xiang City. When he walked out of the city, there were tens of millions of humans on one side and only a few 100,000 on the other side. They were all different creatures, and most of them were from the stone golem civilization. At first glance there were at least 100 of them. Clear had not been idle these past few years and had thrown in quite a number of them. A considerable number of them had either escaped or been dealt with by Clear. Only a small number of them had been left behind, like the stone golems who had been stuck. The stone golems were immortal realms as well. They were not small and were the focus of attention. After all, they were immortal realms. However, the stone golems did not dare to be impudent, even if Lu Yin did not come out. The startled lord's aura was too fierce, and it was obvious that he was not someone to be trifled with. There was also the heaven-carrying immortal beside him. This human civilization was really powerful. Lu Yin looked at all the foreign creatures. I know there are immortal realms among you. Come out. It was impossible for Clear to capture just one immortal realm and try to control Xiang City. Most of the creatures were just trying, and he only had hope of controlling an immortal realm. But Lu Yin did not understand. If an immortal realm really controlled Xiang City, what would he do? Xiang City was known as the strongest defense. Would he be able to shake an immortal realm that controlled Xiang City? This question had been bothering Lu Yin since the moment he returned Xiang City. All the foreign creatures looked at each other. They did not know each other, so they kept their distance and were on guard. For so many years they had been stuck in Xiang City and lived with another appearance. It was really sad. Now that they had escaped, their lives were controlled by this civilization. They were at a loss. Under Lu Yin's gaze, a figure walked out and attracted everyone's attention. The figure looked like seaweed and was only 1 meter tall. It seemed to be lying on the ground, but as it gradually walked out, the aura of an immortal realm shook the surroundings, causing the foreign creatures to tremble and quickly avoid it. Lu Yin looked at the figure and his eyes flashed. Although it was an immortal realm, its aura was waning. It was obvious that it had been severely injured. Its combat strength might not even be as good as Chu Songyun's. May I ask which stronghold you belong to? The figure spoke in a hoarse voice. It was low and weak, but it made Lu Yin's eyes widen. You know 9th base? Alarm Gate Xianxia waved his hand, and the heaven-carrying immortality immediately led tens of millions of people away. Chu Songyun also pulled the foreign creatures away and let Lu Yin and Alarm Gate Xianxia talk about the environment of this immortal realm. The figure slowly raised its head, and a pair of blue eyes appeared under the black seaweed. It seemed to be sizing up Lu Yin and then looked at Alarm Gate Xianyu. Very good, very good. What's good? Lu Yin asked. There is hope for human civilization. You are not immortal but you stand before immortality. This is very good. Lu Yin and Alarm Gate Xianyu looked at each other. Alarm Gate Xianyu did not mind as they were used to Lu Yin handling everything. Whether it was strength or responsibility, Lu Yin was qualified. And at this moment, listening to the seaweed, it seemed to be very friendly to human civilization. Lu Yin looked at it. Your Excellency, you should say something that we can understand. Of course I am Yu Wu. I am Yu Che's master. Both Lu Yin and Alarm Gate Xianyu were shocked. You are Che's master? To be able to enter and leave Xiang City freely, you either stole it from Che or he deliberately gave it to you. Regardless, you know Che. In that case, there is no need for me to hide my identity. This day will eventually come and you have all been used by Che, Yu Wu said slowly, not surprising Lu Yin at all. Being used was within Lu Yin's expectations, or rather, it was within the expectations of the entire human civilization. Che had returned Xiang City because he felt guilty, but only he knew the truth. Perhaps it was as he said, but the possibility was very small. Lu Yin was more willing to believe that he was being used. Just as Che had tried many times to let the immortal realm take control of Xiang City, returning Xiang City to human civilization might also be one of his attempts. Lu Yin did not know how Che would take control of Xiang City if he really did. With the unknown, rules could not be broken and human civilization was now extremely strong, so how could Che take control? Lu Yin looked at Yu Wu doubtfully. Senior, please enlighten me. Yu Wu looked at Lu Yin. Your Excellency, which stronghold do you belong to? Senior, please enlighten me first. Lu Yin would not trust Yu Wu just because he said a few words. Yu Wu lay down again. Human civilization has 9 strongholds. Fortunately, I once saved a human prodigy from danger. As time passed, that human prodigy shone brightly and illuminated an era. He became the master of the 5th stronghold and his name was xianxia. Lu Yin looked serious. The master of the 5th stronghold? Xianxia. Xianxia was an honest and considerate person. His talent was extraordinary, but he was not arrogant. On account of my saving his life, he specially allowed me to enter the 5th stronghold. In that era, human civilization was unrivaled, and foreign creatures were proud to be able to enter the stronghold. That was an era where human civilization could communicate and converse with each other. When I entered the 5th stronghold, I also brought my disciple Yu Che with me. Yu Che. At this point, Yu Wu suddenly became agitated. That bastard betrayed me, the 5th stronghold, and Xiangshue's kindness to us. He's a bastard. Lu Yin narrowed his eyes. Betrayal? Betrayal again? Yu Che had once said that he did not betray them, but his words could not be trusted. The unknown would always be the enemy of human civilization. Alarmed, Xiangyu clenched her fists. She hated traitors. Yu Che and I are not humans, so calling us betrayers is a little too much. However, in Xiangshue's eyes, Yu Che was no different from the other human prodigies. In that era, he was even known as young Master Che of the 5th stronghold, and those human prodigies all accepted him. Yu Wu lay down in the starry sky and looked into the distance. I'm sorry, Xiangxue. I'm sorry. I didn't teach my disciple well. I'm sorry. Lu Yin could not help but interrupt. Senior, please continue. Chapter 4369. Yu Wu was silent for a while. His voice trembled as he said, for some reason, 9th base was besieged by various civilizations. I was duty-bound to fight for the 5th stronghold. But Yu Che betrayed us. He first severely injured me and then attacked the powerhouses of the 5th stronghold. I don't know the outcome of that battle, but when I regained consciousness I saw Xiangyu. Xiang City. I fell into the hands of that bastard. He wanted to take control of Xiang City. What a joke. Xiang City belongs to the 5th stronghold and belongs to human civilization. How could it be controlled by him? Even if I knew something, I wouldn't tell him. He deserves to die. That's why I was thrown into Xiang City by him. He wanted me to try to take control of Xiang City before coming to snatch it from me. I couldn't leave, so I had no intention of leaving. As long as I'm around, that bastard will never be able to take control of Xiang City. Never. Lu Yin listened quietly as he exchanged glances with alarmed guard. Was this another traitor? If Red Hero was the biggest traitor in 9th base, then Yu Che, he was the traitor of the 5th stronghold. The human heart was unpredictable, but Yu Che was not human. It could only be said that humans stood too high during that era and neglected many problems, just like the heavenly sect of the past. Luin recalled what Yuche had said. He had said that he was not human and was not a traitor. He was not a human, so how could he be a traitor? It could only be said that humans were blind and trusted him. In that battle he must have done many things. Otherwise Xiang City would not have fallen into his hands. How strong is this Yuche? Alarmed guard could not help asking. Yu thought about it. I don't know now, but he was at the peak of attuning to the laws of the universe at that time. He was an existence that broke through to eternal life. Luin frowned. Was he only attuning to the laws of the universe? Even if he was at the peak, he would not be able to play any decisive role. Even Red Hero was stronger than him. I know what you're thinking. Normally speaking, those who are at the peak of attuning to the laws of the universe are powerhouses in ninth base, but they are not at the peak. Even if he surpassed me, he was not enough to cause any fatal damage to the fifth stronghold. However, you've overlooked the fifth stronghold itself. The fifth stronghold is the birthplace of your human civilization's mental techniques. Mental techniques are extremely unique and can be infinitely strong or infinitely weak. The fifth stronghold cultivates mental techniques, and the world is born from the heart. Mental techniques can either be born as ants or ascend to the heavens. Mental techniques can make the impossible possible. When I brought Yuche to the fifth stronghold, Yuche basically grew up in the fifth stronghold. He also cultivated a mental technique, and because of his extraordinary talent, he managed to master the fifth stronghold's inherited mental technique back in that era. It's known as the non-phase heavenly skill, second only to the invincible technique. Yu Wu said bitterly, only a few people in the fifth stronghold can master the non-phase heavenly art. But he managed to master it and even kept it a secret until he betrayed us before using it. Lu Yin's expression was solemn. Just how arrogant had the human civilization been back then been? They had even allowed outsiders to cultivate their inherited powers. It was simply laughable in this era. In this day and age, not to mention letting foreign creatures cultivate the power of human civilization, even communication was rare. Human civilization needed to increase its strength, but Luin still managed to kill several Eternal Realm experts, even if those Eternal Realm experts could help the human race. This was his caution. Compared to the time of the 9 bases, it was simply extreme. But it also showed how glorious the human civilization was during the 9th stronghold era. They did not care about foreign creatures at all. With the non-phase heavenly skill, Yuche wouldn't be weak even if he were to face an existence that conformed to 2 universal laws. Especially because of the uniqueness of his mental technique and his understanding of the 5th stronghold, I can't imagine how much damage he caused to the 5th stronghold. How's xianxia doing? Can you tell me which stronghold he's in? How's the 9th stronghold? Yu Wu asked as he looked at Lu Yin and Alarm Gate Xiangyu eagerly. He really wanted to know. Lu Yin said in a low voice, Yuche betrayed the 5th stronghold for the sake of Xiang City? Yu Wu said, yes, Xiang City is known to be the strongest defensive treasure. And once it's used, it's enough to protect the entire 9th stronghold civilization. No one can resist such a temptation. I've recalled a lot of things over the years in Xiang City. Actually, I should have realized it a long time ago. That bastard mentioned several times that he wanted to enter Xiang City, but he was always rejected. Even though xianxia trusted us, Xiang City is related to the inheritance of the entire human civilization. Even the human civilization itself doesn't have many people who can enter it, so it's normal that Yuche couldn't get in. Maybe he already had some ideas from then on. How many civilizations are attacking the 9th stronghold? Many, and some are strong, some are weak. The strongest civilization I know of is the Taiching civilization. They're a fishing civilization that wants to unlock all source boxes and reveal the true face of the core space. They're the main force that attacked the 5th stronghold, and there are many other civilizations that are cooperating with the Taiching civilization, including non-affiliated cultivators like Yuche. Yu Wu paused for a moment before saying, I don't know why it turned out that way. It was as if the 9th stronghold suddenly became the public enemy of the entire core space. No one could explain it to me, and the war came too suddenly. It was as if the entire universe was declining. When I came back to my senses and wanted to find xianxia to clarify the situation, I was ambushed by that bastard Yuche. Now that I think about it, Yuche knew much more than I did. I was too stupid and didn't realize anything. It's all my fault. I've let down the 5th stronghold, let down xianxia, and let down human civilization. Lu Yin was about to ask something else when a chill suddenly descended upon him. He looked around, but there was nothing. He opened his celestial eye and suddenly turned around. In the distance, someone was staring at him. It was Yuche. He did not activate his Raven immobilization, as this was his trump card. Although 8 colors knew about it, she might not tell everyone about it. Yuwu smiled at Luyin and took a step forward. When he reappeared, he was already standing not too far away from Luyin, the gate of surprise, and Yuwu. He faced Yuwu and slowly bowed. Master, you're finally willing to show yourself. Yuwu glared at Yuwu and roared angrily, bastard. Yuwu said with a smile, Master, you've misunderstood me. You betrayed me, xianxia, and the 5th stronghold. You bastard. Yuwu roared. Yuwu was still smiling. He was as polite as he had been when he first met Luyin in the consciousness universe. How can I betray you if I didn't join you? Did xianxia promise us to join the 5th stronghold? Did I ever have any status in human civilization? He then looked at Luyin. What do you think, Luyin? What do you think, Luyin? Luyin's expression was calm as he stared at Yuwu coldly. This guy must have used him to gain control of Xiang City before seizing it back. Otherwise, why would he give Luyin the city that he had seized after betraying the 5th stronghold? But what would he do? If Luyin really gained control of Xiang City, how would he take it back? Luyin would never feel at ease if he did not figure this out. Even if he had the ability to gain control of Xiang City, he would still feel uneasy. Yuwu was not stupid, so he must have prepared a backup plan. Especially since Xiang City had been in his hands for so many years. Yuwu's body heaved and his blue eyes turned white. You bastard. The 5th stronghold was the one who taught you, yet you attacked them and seized Xiang City. You'll die a horrible death. Yuwu smiled. Humans have reached the pinnacle of glory. Even if I didn't make a move, someone else would have. Master, I attacked you back then because I didn't want you to die in that war. And as you can see, I've been walking the square inch as a human for so many years. That's because I've acknowledged the human identity. Unfortunately, xianxia has never acknowledged me. Otherwise, why would they not let me enter Xiang City back then? He then looked at Luyin. Humans have become arrogant because of their prosperity, but they're also accepting because of their glory. That's not good. Luyin, you'll have to learn your lesson. The only unchanging rule of the square inch is that we cannot communicate with each other. However, the 9th stronghold has broken this rule, so it will be destroyed. I'm not the one who attacked the 5th stronghold, but the entire universe. It's the human civilization that's being attacked, so I can't stop it. Alarmed Xianghu raised his startling cloud. Shameless. Yuwu's startling cloud. Che was not angry. Instead he smiled. The unknowns have protected your 3 universes for 1,000 years, but that's only if you don't take the initiative to attack others. Luyin, we're all unknowns, so don't hurt our friendship. I'll help you no matter what happens. The unknowns have acknowledged me and they've also acknowledged you. Luyin raised his hand and suppressed the startling cloud, not allowing alarmed Xianghu to attack. He could not attack Che, as alarmed Xianghu would definitely die if he faced Che alone. Che's strength was unfathomable, and facing him would be like facing another red hero. They were already having a hard time dealing with red hero, let alone Che. Thank you. Che smiled. Luyin said calmly, is this what you meant by guilt? Che sighed with a gloomy expression. He placed a hand on his chest and slowly bowed to Luyin. Guilt does not equate to wrongdoing. What I did was not wrong, but I also missed the 5th stronghold. That's why I hope that you can take control of Xiang City and restore the 5th stronghold to its former glory. At this point, his expression changed and he slowly looked at Yuwu with a surprised expression. Master, are you seeking death? Luyin's expression changed and he quickly looked at Yuwu. His attention had been focused on Yu Che, so he did not notice that Yuwu's aura had changed. It had become deep, hollow, and oppressive. Senior, what are you doing? Yuwu looked at Luyin. Child, don't listen to his nonsense. He's using you to take control of Xiang City. His ultimate goal is to see through Xiang City and seize it. He's probably using the phaseless sky art. This mental technique can avoid all external cultivation and focus on the heart. It's a legendary mental technique in the 5th stronghold, and it's second only to an invincible technique. It's very difficult to crack this mental technique. All I know is to cultivate willpower and use it to become one with all living beings. That way he won't be able to find your heart. Master, be careful with your words, Yu Che interrupted. Winds blew and clouds surged in the starry sky. A monstrous pressure covered the sky like dark clouds that caused the universe to shrink. At this moment, the heaven-carrying immortal trembled, and the stone monster crouched down. The Gate of Wonder was shocked. This pressure? Luyin looked at Che. This pressure was on par with the pressure Red Hero was exerting. Yuwu laughed. Bastard, I know you've been cultivating a lot over the years, but what you're really relying on is the phaseless sky art. You can't create a power that surpasses the fifth stronghold's inherited mental technique on your own. That's why I want to expose your weakness. Child, I've let down the fifth stronghold so I can only repay you with my death. See through this bastard's power and avenge the fifth stronghold. After saying that, Yu Wu's body suddenly expanded. His seaweed-like body became tougher, and his eyes turned from blue to white. Vitality surged from him as he charged at Che. Chapter 4370. Clear looked ahead. Master, why do you have to do this? I'll still be filial to you and repay you for raising and nurturing me. Die, you beast. The aura of life descended. Streaks of blue light followed the aura of life and turned into meteors that smashed towards Clear. Clear raised his hand and pointed with a finger. Chi sword technique. The blade cut through the aura of life and stopped the streaks of blue light. Yu Wu closed in and turned into an afterimage. Clear easily dodged the attack. With just a finger he stopped all of Yu Wu's attacks. No matter how Yu Wu attacked, it could not hurt him at all. Jingmen Xiangyu clenched her startling cloud and wanted to attack. This is a grudge between me and this beast. Please don't interfere, Yu Wu shouted and stopped Jingmen Xiangyu. The Gate of Wonder was unwilling to give up, but she could sense Yu Wu's determination to die. Ever since it had left Xiang City, it had already been weakened to the extreme and now, it had only overdrawn its life force to recover to its peak. It wanted to fight Yu Che to the death, not only because it wanted to help Luyin force out Yu Che's strength, but it also wanted to help Luyin force out Yu Che's strength. Not only did he help Lu Che, but he also wanted to help Lu Che and explain himself to xianxia. Only death could give him an explanation. I have instant transmission. I can take you away, Luyin said. As long as Yu Wu said so, no one could stop him. Clear had appeared here to deal with Yu Wu. But even so, Luyin was confident he could take him away. Yu Wu praised, good. Ah. Humans can actually teleport. Those strange birds are done for, ha. Child, give me some face and let me personally apologize to xianxia. With Xiang City in Clear's hands, the fate of the fifth stronghold could be imagined. Clear kept dodging. With a wave of his finger, he tore Yu Wu's body apart. Master, why do you have to do this? Let's go. I'm willing to take care of you in your old age. Luyin is also willing. There's still human civilization there. I'm sure they'll be very willing to listen to your stories. Yu Wu roared, Beast, even if I die, I'll make you explain yourself to the humans. With that, his entire body collapsed. The void kept exploding, and a mysterious feeling instantly filled the surroundings. At this moment, Luyin felt like he could see Yu Wu's heart. He was being led by it. He saw the past. Was this a mental technique? Although he had never come into contact with it, he could imagine it. Jingmen Xiangyu's expression changed as well. The mind technique actually allowed her to see into a creature's heart. Yu Wu's heart was filled with the desire to die, but he also yearned for the past. Luyin felt as if he could see the glorious fifth stronghold. He saw a gentle gentleman drinking tea with it and laughing heartily. He saw many geniuses soaring into the sky, including Clear. Its heart ached. It ached for the defeat of the fifth stronghold, and it ached for Che's betrayal. Yu Che was surprised. Master, I thought you didn't learn any mental skills. Yu Wu's body continued to crack open as blood seeped out. In the blink of an eye, drops of blood flowed out in all directions, replacing the starry sky, the heart's heart, and the universe of the heart. Traceless heart blood? Master, you've really given me a pleasant surprise. Do you want to perish together with this disciple? As he spoke up to hear, his gaze suddenly became extremely gloomy and cold. Do you want to experience the non-phase heaven art? Bastard, having the non-phase sky art in your hands is the greatest insult to the fifth stronghold. Go to hell. Yu Wu roared. Drop after drop of his heart's blood flew towards Yu Che. Every drop contained Yu Wu's determination to die. Heaven carrying Eternal was horrified as it watched the drop of blood fly past it. It had a feeling that if it was touched it would melt. It was too terrifying. What kind of battle technique was this? A drop of blood was already so terrifying. At this moment, Yu Che was surrounded by all of Yu Wu's heart's blood. It was as if the heart's blood had transformed into a universe that completely enveloped him. Clear sighed deeply. Why do you have to do this? Then he crossed his hands in front of his chest. Mental techniques have an absolute distinction. There is no confrontation, only substitution. Master, have you forgotten? As Clear's palms moved, a circular ripple spread out, and the blood that came into contact with it gradually turned green. Luyin, Jingmen Xiangyu, and the others watched in shock. Yu Wu's mental technique had been replaced. Yu Wu retreated step by step and kept spitting out blood. His eyes were burning white as he said to Luyin, "Child, this is a mental technique. The non-phase sky art is an extremely powerful mental technique. No matter what day it is, don't think of using it to win. Not only will it be useless, but it will also be replaced by his strength. Unless you've mastered the fifth stronghold's inherited mental technique, the undivided heart affinity technique, don't ever compete with this beast in terms of mental techniques. The undivided heart affinity technique is the fifth stronghold's most powerful mental technique. It is known as one of the 9 invincible techniques, and it is located in Xiang City. This beast has been searching for it for so many years, but he still can't find it. Xuanhuan once said, "Be at ease with one's heart. Remember, be at ease with one's heart." Luyin watched as Yu Wu's body continued to shatter. As more and more of his heart's blood was replaced, his aura grew weaker. He was being forced to his death. Clear slowly closed his eyes. "Since Master is determined to die, I can only send you off. Perhaps one day when the river of time reverses, we will meet again." Then the ripple spread out and was about to replace all of his heart's blood. In an instant, Luyin appeared beside Yu Wu. Yu Chei's mental technique suddenly stopped, and he looked at Luyin calmly. "You don't send me off." Luyin raised a hand and supported Yu Wu as they teleported away. Yu Chei did not stop them and watched as Luyin left with Yu Wu. His lips curled up. "All right." He then glanced at startled Xiangyu and the rest before leaving under the horrified gazes of Heaven Bearer, Immortality, and the Stone Golem. Startled Xiangyu suppressed his urge to attack, as she would definitely die if he did. She might not even be able to withstand Yu Wu's heart's blood, let alone Clear's formless sky art. Even though Yu Wu had already declined to the extreme. A mental technique? The fifth stronghold's inheritances were truly powerful. On the other side, Luyin teleported back to the Xuanhuan universe with Yu Wu and brought him to Heaven's sect. The 9 walls have been defeated, but our human civilization has not been destroyed. Currently, we know of the second stronghold's path of ruthlessness, the fourth stronghold's longevity civilization, and the inheritances that were once used as bait. The 3 human universes are respectively formed by the Xuanhuan universe, the 9th firmament universe, and the spiritualized universe. Luyin brought Yu Wu to Heaven's sect and looked out at the stars. He watched as cultivators entered and exited one by one as he slowly explained the current situation of human civilization. Although it could not compare to the 9 walls, it was definitely qualified to stand at the core space. Yu Wu had asked him twice, but Luyin had not answered him. Now he was telling him everything before his death. Yu Wu could not live on any longer. His heart's blood was gone, and his body had also collapsed due to the forced battle with Yu Chei. The only thing Luyin could do was not to let him die with regrets. Although human civilization had been defeated, it did not mean that they would not return to their peak one day. The one who caused the collapse of the 9 walls was not Clear. He is not that powerful. Senior, you don't have to blame yourself. Senior Xianxia will not blame you either, Luyin said. Yu Wu was gratified. That's good. Although I'm not human, I've witnessed the most glorious side of humanity and received many gifts from their civilization. Now that I'm about to die, I wish that the heavenly Tao's reincarnation would allow me to enter human civilization, even if I'm just an ordinary person. Luyin looked at him and did not say anything. Child, did you see the formless sky art clearly? Yes. Unless you find the heart's affinity technique, if that beast uses the formless sky art, use your willpower to resist it. Of course, you have to have cultivated willpower. Otherwise, don't fight it head-on. The power of the 5th stronghold is special in the entire 9 walls. At this point, he coughed violently as his body shrank. His voice was intermittent as he muttered to himself, I wish I could see Xianxia again. I wish I could see the 5th stronghold from that time. If only time could flow back to that time. That would be the happiest time of my life. You saw me as your friend, but I saw you as my master. Just like the divine chariot following Pan, I wish I could return to that time. The voice disappeared and Yu Wu was completely dead. Luyin stood in front of him and bowed slowly. Senior, rest in peace. The above the heavens sounded the death knell. Although they had only met for a short time, Yu Wu had done everything he could. He had told Luyin some of the past events from that time period and allowed him to see Yu Chei's formless sky art. He had also learned about the heart's affinity technique in Xiang City. The heart's affinity technique? The true inheritance of the 5th stronghold's heart technique was in Xiang City. He did not know how to find it. Had Yu Chei found it after all these years? Yu Wu was sure that he had not, but Luyin felt uneasy. Yu Chei was unfathomable. Many people sought after the glory of their predecessors and believed in their wisdom. However, one could not underestimate the achievements of the current generation. Lu Yin was confident that if he went back to the Nine Stronghold era, he would be the strongest among his peers. Then what about Yu Che? How far could he go? After burying Yu Wu, Lu Yin teleported out of Xiang City and brought back Startle Gate and the others. Yu Che had already left. As for the stone golem, Lu Yin brought it back to Xiang City. He needed to have someone on his side in Xiang City. Soon after, Lu Yin told Qinglian Shangyu, Mr. Mu, and the others what had happened. They sighed with emotion when they heard the story. Even though Yu Wu was not human, he was respected by them. After that, Lu Yin went to Xiang City more frequently. The foreign creatures that had been trapped inside had all come out. Xiang City was very lively now. Stools, candles, and even trees were being burned everywhere. It was as though those things could move. There was also a craze in Xiang City to recreate all sorts of things. Lu Yin transformed into a bird and sat on a tree, occasionally changing his position to observe the situation. Was he free? What was the meaning of this? The chaos in Xiang City lasted for a long time, and it only calmed down after 10 years. However, during these 10 years, Lu Yin had entered Xiang City many times, but he had not been able to find a way to control the city. He still needed to reach a certain state of mind, and he still needed to transform into a human. Far away from the three universes, Lu Yin released Miao Zun. It had been more than 100 years since the boss had captured Miao Zun. Although it had not been long, it was enough time for him to be interrogated. Miao Zun was a huge, strange, triangular insect. It was impossible to tell what it had looked like before, but it had been beaten up quite badly by the boss. Now it was lying in outer space half dead. As soon as it was released, it did not hesitate to escape and even used an invisible world to attack indiscriminately. However, Lu Yin's sword pierced through its body, and it became obedient. As it looked at Lu Yin, memories from the past flooded its mind. Was it this creature? Chapter 4371. You should know about my civilization, right? Lu Yin spoke slowly as he stared at Miao Zun. At that moment, Miao Zun was surrounded by dozens of triple firmament sword intents. He moved randomly and was torn apart. Miao Zun felt the piercing sharpness as he stared at Lu Yin. No. Lu Yin sneered. That's not what the originator and Red Hero said. They told me that your favorite food is humans. Miao Zun's aura fluctuated. No, I haven't eaten any humans. Is that why you captured me? That's right. I really haven't. I haven't eaten any. Who's the originator? Who's Red Hero? You don't know the originator and Red Hero? They're the unknowns. Miao Zun thought about it. Unknowns? They're the unknowns? Yes, they told me about you. I'm sorry, but you can't join the unknowns. Plus you'll die. Lu Yin's tone was cold. The dozens of triple firmament sword intents got closer to Miao Zun, making him feel despair as if he would be torn apart at any moment. Miao Zun hurriedly said, They lied to you. They don't want me to join the unknowns, so they lied to you. I haven't eaten any humans. I remember now. Back then we fought against the unknown. I fought 2 of them. One of them was a civilization like you. Is it him? Is he the originator or Red Hero? Lu Yin clasped his hands behind his back. Stop pretending. What's the point of fighting if you don't even know who the enemy is? You won't be able to escape death no matter how much you pretend. You can't kill me. If I join the unknowns, you'll be hunted down by them. Those 2 unknowns told me this. That means they don't want you to join, so you can't join. They're using you. Miao Zun screamed. Do you have a grudge against them? They're using you to kill me and then they'll let the unknowns attack you. That must be it. Don't be used by them. Lu Yin was amused. This guy's brain worked really fast. He said whatever he thought of, regardless of how big the possibility was. Miao Zun guessed that Miao Zun would say the same thing if Red Hero was standing here. But this was what Lu Yin needed. You said that they're using me and that's possible. Then tell me what abilities they have and see if they're the same as the ones you've seen before. At this moment, Miao Zun could only grab onto this life-saving straw. The triple blue sword had already pierced into his body and could tear him apart at any time. The creature in front of him was not in the eternal life realm yet, so he did not have to worry about being bound by karma. He could really kill him at any time. How could there be such a strong scoundrel? War with the unknowns. I fought against 2 unknowns. One is a creature that looks like you. He specialized in sourcebox arrays, and I didn't even come into contact with him when I fought him. I was trapped by his sourcebox array for a long time, and I couldn't escape even after the battle ended. There's another one that uses pure unfathomable godly power to attack. Its godly power is the most boundless out of all the unfathomable beings I've ever seen. It's simply ridiculous. I can only run when facing it. Right, the world it can't see is a dining table. Luin frowned. Did you just say a sourcebox array? The latter was obviously Big Harry while the former was definitely Red Hero. However, Red Hero had actually used a sourcebox array to trap Miaozun. Miaozun's power was much weaker than Red Hero's, and Red Hero could easily kill him. However, she might have been wary of being bound by karma, which was why she had not acted. But if a sourcebox array could trap Miaozun, then how powerful was that array? However, Red Hero was indeed skilled in sourcebox arrays. The sourcebox array that 100 Fist Mountain had set up could already be seen, but that array's main function was to shield, not to trap. Miaozun was an expert who could rival Lan Meng, but it had been able to trap an eternal life realm cultivator like him until the end of the battle. One could only imagine how powerful that sourcebox array was. Luin realized that he had always overlooked this point. Red Hero was skilled in sourcebox arrays. Miaozun recalled that battle and slowly recounted it, not missing any details. It was not that he had a good memory, but that battle had left a deep impression on him. He had been trapped by a sourcebox array for so long and had not been able to escape until the end of the battle. He had been like a little bug and he did not want to experience such an experience again. It was also because of that battle that he was willing to join the unknowns. The unknowns were too powerful. Both of the unknowns that he had fought had been able to deal with him. But why had those two stopped him from joining? Or was it just as he had guessed? Were they trying to use him to deal with this creature? He knew that he had fallen into someone else's trap, and he needed to survive. Luin listened for a long time, but only one sourcebox array had trapped Miaozun. Miaozun had only seen Red Hero from start to finish, but he had never actually fought with her. Just a sourcebox array had been able to trap him, which was a little scary. This meant that Miaozun could not see through this sourcebox array, which also meant that Red Hero might have even more powerful sourcebox arrays. Luin sighed. What about the other one? Does it have more godly power? Luin asked. Demao belonged to the unknowns and he was also an enemy. Miaozun said, this one has a ridiculous amount of godly power. It has the most godly power out of all the unknowns that I've ever seen. You've only seen two unknowns. I fought against two unknowns, but in that battle I saw the strongest person on our side fight against an unknowns. That was a battle between absolute powerhouses and I couldn't see it clearly. Even that unknowns didn't have this much godly power. Luin frowned. That much? It seemed like Demao had a certain level of confidence in calling out Red Hero. Otherwise, why would an unknowns that was compatible with the laws of the universe be so arrogant? That's right, this creature has two invisible worlds, Miaozun said. Luin was shocked. Two. Yes, two. There are creatures that have two invisible worlds. This was beyond Lu Yin's knowledge. Invisible worlds were created based on the laws of the universe, so it was normal to not have one. But why would there be two? Either they were compatible with two universal laws, but Luin had communicated with Qinglian Shangyu before. If they were compatible with two universal laws, then they would try their best to merge into an invisible world. This was because most of the time, numbers were meaningless. Exchanging an extremely powerful invisible world for two ordinary invisible worlds was a choice that everyone knew how to make. Miaozun said, this is my first time seeing it as well. Other than these, is there anything else? Luin asked. Miaozun said, that battle was very intense. I always feel like there's something important, but I can't remember it. I've been asleep for too long, but don't worry, I'll definitely remember it when I see them. Luin smiled and pointed at the general appointment platform, which was Hell's prison. Miaozun was thrown in and Lu Yin's voice sounded. Don't worry, you're an unknowns. You're very useful and I don't want you to die. Miaozun slammed into the general appointment platform with a fierce look. He didn't expect such a creature to capture him. Just you wait, once I recover, I'll eat you up inch by inch and make you suffer. After a while, the increase in the karma heavenly path ended. Luin was sure that the range of his karma heavenly path had exceeded the karma celestial phenomenon, but it was only the karma celestial phenomenon that Qinglian Shangyu released all year round. It wasn't the limit of the karma celestial phenomenon. The mud blade's attack range could affect an unknowns for decades. Even if Qinglian Shangyu wasn't as powerful as Red Hero, he was definitely not weaker than the mud blade. The karma celestial phenomenon's range was very exaggerated. His current range was just Qinglian Shangyu releasing it all year round to adapt to his battle with Red Hero. This was also the human civilization's attitude towards the square inch. They didn't communicate, didn't zhang and avoided it as much as possible. Whoosh, whoosh. The triple firmament sword intent pierced through and Miao Zun died. He didn't expect Lu Yin to kill him. How could this be? Didn't he say that he didn't want him to die? He was an unknown, so he should be valuable to him. What? Why did he want to kill him? The sky overflowed with vitality, and another unknown's died. Lu Yin's gaze was cold. Just because he didn't want you to die, it didn't mean that you didn't have to die. He also wanted to use the square inches unknowns for himself, but it was impossible. Some unknowns could use it while others couldn't. After dealing with Miao Zun, Lu Yin teleported to the Red Shirt civilization and arrived in front of the Blood Tower. Senior, what ability does Red Hero have with sourcebox arrays? Xuanhuan asked. Why do you ask? Lu Yin told him about how Miao Zun had been trapped, and Xuanhuan was shocked. He was actually hiding something like that? Senior, you don't know? The sourcebox array at 100 Fist Mountain isn't bad. That sourcebox array wasn't set up by him. Xuanhuan paused and his expression changed as he met Lu Yin's gaze. I've been tricked. Lu Yin sighed as he finally understood. From the very beginning, Red Hero had never intended to reveal his knowledge of sourcebox arrays to the Red Shirt civilization. Xuanhuan knew about the sourcebox array at 100 Fist Mountain, but he had never thought that it had been set up by Red Hero. Red Hero said that the sourcebox array came from a foreign civilization, and it can only be permanently fixed in one location. That's why the 100 Fist Mountain was created. It's not like there was a sourcebox array after the 100 Fist Mountain. You've seen the situation at 100 Fist Mountain. It's not a place that's suitable for cultivation, and it's also not a place with great scenery. Why did they lock you up there? It's because there's a sourcebox array there. I've always thought that was the case. Now that you're saying this, he must have been lying to me from the very beginning. That's why I've neglected the sourcebox array for so many years. Lu Yin asked, did he mention which foreign civilization the sourcebox array came from? Xuanhuan shook his head. Oh. Lu Yin's first thought was of the Taiqing sect, the civilization that Senior Youwu had mentioned that had attacked the fifth stronghold. It seemed like only such a civilization could have such high attainments in the field of sourcebox arrays. Speaking of which, he had wondered if there would be a fishing civilization that specialized in sourcebox arrays in the square kilometer zone. He did not expect there to actually be one. This was the square kilometer zone where anything was possible. A technological fishing civilization and a sourcebox array fishing civilization had both exceeded his expectations. But how did Red Hero get involved with the Taiqing sect? The Taiqing sect had attacked the fifth stronghold, while Red Hero had attacked the second stronghold. Although it seemed like they belonged to the ninth stronghold, they were actually very far from each other, and the ninth stronghold was not connected. It was just like how mortals knew the difference between countries. The people of one country might not understand another country, and they might not even know where they lived. Lu Yin could not figure it out, so he left. Chapter 4372. Xuanhuan was still afraid. If Red Hero had not used the Blood Tower to bind him, and he had joined forces with Qing Lian to fight, the outcome might not have been as they had expected. Red Hero had hidden too well. 20 years passed in the blink of an eye. One day 8 Colors' voice was heard. Jade. The one-line sky is gone. The mission to capture Jade is cancelled. Cancelled? What about the Jade universe? They're spreading rumors about me everywhere. Haha, that's not right. There's no other way. We can't find the Jade universe once the one-line sky disappears. The Jade universe is too cunning. Even if we go through the one-line sky, we won't see the Jade universe. Could it be related to the 7 treasures Heavenly Toad? What we see through the one-line sky is not the Jade universe. What the 7 treasures Heavenly Toad sees might not be the Jade universe. This is my mission. It's not fair to cancel it just like that. Am I right, 8 Color? 8 Color said, your mission is not cancelled. But if we don't capture Jade, we won't find the Jade universe. How can we destroy it? Ha, old man. How can you still laugh? Lu Yin asked. He came in because his mission was to capture Jade. Now that the mission was cancelled, he had to know. The old man said, young man, be optimistic. There's no other way. We can open another path. He then raised his voice. White? Help me. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. White. Unknown doors all originated from White. White was very mysterious. Help me find the Jade universe. We can talk about the price. The old man said. Lu Yin was puzzled. Why does this old man want to destroy the Jade universe? Sure. An unfamiliar voice appeared. Lu Yin had never heard it before. Is this White's voice? He immediately greeted, "White, how are you?" White did not respond. Lu Yin called a few more times but White did not respond. Lu Yin had no choice but to leave the unknown door. It seemed that the war with the Jade Universe would definitely break out. But if White had the ability to find the Jade Universe, why did it have to capture Jade? The one-line sky disappeared and 8-color cancelled the mission. Could it be that it could not command White? No, it could also be that White had another mission. When it had a mission, it could not assign other missions unless it was a war. Lu Yin actually hoped that it was the latter. Otherwise, it would be too unsettling to know that there were existences that surpassed the 8 colors. That transparent balance is already unsettling. After leaving Zhu whereabouts, Lu Yin rested for a while before heading to the Sparrow Arena. He found Jingmen Xianxia. There are still 10 years before the meteor realm reappears. Senior, do you want to enter the immortal civilization again? Lu Yin asked. 800 years had passed since his last visit to the longevity civilization. Time had passed too quickly. These 800 years felt much shorter than the 100 years he had spent cultivating in the Tianyuan cosmos. Jingmen Xianxia had a complicated look in his eyes. Were they about to arrive again? Lu Yin was certain that the longevity civilization was the 4th stronghold celestial eye tribe. Now that the meteor realm had reappeared, he had to find Xianhu and explain everything clearly. Even if they were unwilling to be involved with this human civilization, they had to at least let him know what had happened during the Battle of 9 Bases and who the enemy was. Each of the 9 bases was equivalent to a fishing civilization. This was not a joke. Currently, it was known that the Unknowns, Immortal Plume, the Death Universe, and the Grand Clear civilization had participated in the Battle of 9 Bases. There were also many other rogue cultivators like Yuche. But those were just a few fishing civilizations. How could they besiege the 9th base? He had heard the term besiege many times before, which meant that there were definitely more enemy civilizations than the 9th base. Those weak civilizations were not even worthy of besieging the 9th base. Lu Yin guessed that there had to be at least 9 fishing civilizations that had participated in besieging the 9th base. Otherwise, how could the 9th base have been defeated? The war god Disc alone had been able to defend one side, but it had still not been able to withstand the assault. It could be imagined that there were many more enemy civilizations than the 9th base. Although almost all civilizations within the square meter could be considered enemies, there was still a difference in order. Compared to the technological fishing civilization, Lu Yin would rather destroy Immortal Plume first. Compared to the Mudwater Kingdom, he would rather destroy the Unknowns first. Jingmen Xianxia pondered for a moment. I don't know either. She wanted to see how Chang Tian was doing. That small piece of longevity vine had caused Chang Tian to be punished, and this matter had always been remembered in her heart. Furthermore, Qingyun also wanted to see her biological father. You want the longevity civilization to ally with us? Jingmen Xianxia asked Lu Yin. Lu Yin shook his head. I just want to ask a few questions. Whether or not we ally with them depends on themselves. They have the freedom to make their own choices. Jingmen Xianxia nodded and did not say anything else. Lu Yin left. Regardless of whether Jingmen Xianxia went or not, he was going anyway. Compared to the last time, he understood much more about the 9th base and he could also converse with xuanhuan. 10 years passed very quickly and the meteor realm reappeared. Lu Yin once again appeared at the startled Sparrow Terrace. Not only did he bring Jingmen Xianxia with him, but he also brought Qingyun with him. Qingyun held the longevity vine in her hand. She had no memories of her father but she felt warmth. It was not that her father did not want her. Let's go, Lu Yin said. Jingmen Xianxia grabbed Qingyun's hand and headed towards the meteor realm. Lu Yin followed behind them. At that moment, a cold light descended from the sky, and a suffocating sharpness suddenly appeared. It extended from one direction to another, and in this direction Lu Yin, Jingmen Xianxia, and Qingyun were all present. The moment Lu Yin sensed the sharpness, he subconsciously grabbed Jingmen Xianxia and teleported away, but the sharpness was unbelievably fast. It was as if the moment he saw it, it was already too late. Lu Yin teleported away and looked to his side. There was no Jingmen Xianxia, only a small section of her arm dripping with blood. It belonged to Jingmen Xiangxia's arm. In the distance the meteor realm split into 2. Then, even further away, Lu Yin could see that the spiritualized universe had also split into 2. It even extended to the consciousness universe, cutting off a third of it. A ray of sharpness filled the heavens and nothing seemed to be able to stop it. It surpassed the limits of what the mirroring technique could see, and it continued to extend into the distance. It was just a ray of sharpness. The meteor realm scattered and completely disappeared. At this moment, Lu Yin was speechless. At this moment, the entire human civilization was speechless. Qinglian Xiangyu and the others silently looked at the heavens as if time had frozen. Lu Yin teleported back to Jingmen Xiangyu's side. Qingyun supported Jingmen Xiangyu, her face pale. Jingmen Xiangyu's arm had been cut off, and the sharpness had damaged half of her body. She coughed up blood. Senior. Lu Yin immediately brought her back to Nina Firmament's universe and appeared in Yihai. Qinglian Xiangyu placed a hand on Jingmen Xiangyu's shoulder to block the sharpness for her. Lu Yin stared blankly at this scene, and his hands and feet went cold. What he had felt at that moment still made his scalp go numb. The entire universe had been sliced apart like a thin piece of paper. Regardless of whether it was within or within the universe, everything was the same. Even Jingmen Xiangyu had been severely injured. There was no way for him to even dodge, let alone block it. He had also almost been unable to escape with his teleportation. From beginning to end, he had not even seen the enemy's appearance. He did not even know where the enemy's attack had started. At this moment, Lu Yin felt a deep sense of helplessness. It was like when he had first stepped into the cultivation world and faced the Night King clan. It was like when the Grand Empyrean had brought him to see the Eternals clearly. It was like when he had failed to save Patriarch Shan. That helplessness, despair, and coldness filled his heart. Everyone was silent. Qinglian Xiangyu silently healed Jingmen Xiangyu, but this injury was not so easy to heal. It was not something that time could erase. There was some kind of power involved. Qingyun stood to the side, clenching her longevity vine tightly. Lu Yin did not speak. At this moment he had nothing to say. The meteor realm was gone, and the longevity civilization could not be found. Was this the purpose of that existence? It had only been one move. One move had completely torn apart the sense of security of the three universes. It had completely defeated the self-preservation power that humanity thought they had. If this move had been just a little bit off, Jingmen Xiangyu would have died. It was not that the other party could not kill him, but that it did not want to. Looking at the blood on the ground was telling everyone a fact. As long as it was willing, the human civilization would not be able to withstand a single move. Lu Yin took a deep breath and teleported away. He arrived in the starry sky and lay down in the hanging coffin. 8 colors. I'm here. A creature cut off the universe of our human civilization and seriously injured Jingmen Xiangyu. You said that I participated in the forced conscription and that the human civilization would be protected for 1,000 years. What do you say about this? Lu Yin asked in a low voice. 8 colors said, the promise of protection is not omnipotent. I can only promise you that I will investigate this matter. If there is no result in the end, I will compensate you. The existence that attacked should be invisible. Do you have evidence? Of course, Lu Yin had no evidence. He did not even know where that move had come from. But other than the mysterious master of balance who was very likely to be hidden in the three universes, he could not think of anyone else. He joined the unknowns to protect the three universes and to understand and finally get rid of this old enemy. Lu Yin had never thought of truly relying on the unknowns. But at this moment he actually placed his hopes on his old enemy. He himself found it ridiculous. That sense of powerlessness deeply surrounded him. He did not know who to talk to or who could help him. He longed for something from the unknowns, even if it was information about the enemy. But 8 Colors' answer was cold and merciless. Should he be disappointed? It was ridiculous. In this dark and deep universe, it was the biggest joke to place one's hopes on someone else, not to mention an old enemy. It could only be said that that ray of light had cut off everything that Lu Yin thought he had done so far. It was as if everything he had done was meaningless. He left Jingmen Xiangyu and returned to the back mountain of the Above Heaven sect. He silently looked at the starry sky. Mr. Mu came and quietly accompanied him without speaking. Long Shi poured tea for the two and silently retreated. Master, I haven't done enough. Far from enough, Lu Yin murmured. Mr. Mu took a sip of tea. You're lost. Lu Yin's gaze was complicated. Yes, he was lost. It was not fear or cowardice but truly lost. He was more lost than ever. In the past, when he had faced the oppression of powerful enemies, even when he had seen the truth about the Eternals, he had not felt this way. He had been depressed, but he had quickly cheered up. No matter how desperate he was, there would always be someone who would go with him. But this time he was lost because his upper limit had been locked. Chapter 4373. That ray of light was not for killing, but to lock the upper limit of the current human civilization. It seemed to be telling Lu Yin that it was enough. Don't increase your strength, don't join forces with other human civilizations. If they dared to do so, what awaited them was this ray of light, an unparalleled ray of light. This was the reason why Luin was at a loss. He was not afraid that the enemy was strong enough, but such a strong enemy had locked their upper limit. How to break through? The immortal civilization was the fourth barrier, but they could not come into contact with it. Perhaps from the beginning they could not really merge with the red coats under the stars, even without Red Hero. What should he do to break through this situation? To break through this situation, what was needed was not wisdom but absolute strength. This was the simplest but also the most complicated situation. Human civilization had never been so silent. No matter what kind of situation they encountered, they were always discussing and thinking of ways to break through one obstacle after another. However, this obstacle was really difficult to pass. They were like young children. The person in front of them was a powerful adult. The road ahead was blocked. How could they talk about vitality? Perhaps from the beginning they had been kept in captivity, but they did not know it. This ray of light allowed everyone to see this fact. The enemy was strong but not scary. The scary thing was that they could not become stronger. This was true despair. Mr. Mu put down his teacup and looked at Luin with a smile. Little Seven, you have never needed anyone to comfort you. Some people live longer than you, but they may not have suffered as much as you. Some people live harder than you, but they may not have as much responsibility as you. What you have experienced the most is not the battles, not the life and death situations, but the torture of yourself. A frog at the bottom of a well is actually very happy. As long as you can't see the sky outside, the world is that well. If you can see the sky outside, you will have more pursuits and more dangers. But you climb out of the well again and again. Before you have the ability, you have to bear the fate of everyone. You are stronger than anyone else. What I want to say is actually just one sentence. Mr. Mu looked at Luin with a serious expression. Everyone believes in you. After saying that, he left. Luin was silent for a moment, then he could not help but laugh. Was he a frog? Well, it sounded better than a toad. But sometimes he really needed to be comforted, or at least say a few nice words. How could he say that his disciple was a frog at the bottom of a well? Long she smiled faintly as she poured tea for Luin. Laugh if you want to. Luin was speechless. Long she took away Mr. Mu's teacup and looked at Luin with a smile. Even if it is a frog, it is the most domineering frog I have ever seen. Luin blinked. Wasn't this still a frog? In the distance of an inch far away, the immortal plume tree let out a mournful cry, causing countless creatures below the tree to cry out as well. Blood dripped down from the tree crown, burning the void. The blood came from Yulu. Yulu fell onto the treetop. Her slender and charming eyes were now filled with anger. Her pink dress was stained with blood, her body was torn apart, and half of her wings were broken. She looked extremely miserable. Yulu reared her head back and cried out once more. She teleported away, and when she reappeared, she was already on the other side of the treetop. In front of her was an egg, but in reality, it was the dream of 1,000 autumns, the place where the immortal feathers slumbered to dissolve the restraints of karma. Following Yulu's mournful cry, cracks appeared on the egg and gradually spread. Finally, an immortal plume walked out of it. This immortal plume was obviously much older than Yulu. Its 2 white eyebrows drooped down from its eyes to its feet. Its eyes were turbid and it looked drowsy. On its head, a cluster of colorful spiritual hair fluttered in the wind, rippling with a faint light. Little Yulu, what's wrong? Patriarch South Spirit, Yulu is injured. Oh? This is? How dare you bully the weak? That's too much. How did you provoke him? Yulu just wants revenge. When Yulu woke up, she accidentally saw a civilization with several eternal lives. She wanted to capture a few and offer them to the Patriarch, but one of the rascals actually knew our teleportation. Although there was a range limit, Yulu did not succeed in teleporting. What? It knows our race's teleportation? What creature? Human civilization, Yulu said. Yulu said. When she first entered the karmic celestial phenomenon, she did not remember. She only felt that it was familiar. Later on, she remembered that it was the human civilization, the terrifying civilization that made her immortal plume revere. This was also the reason why she went to the 3 universes recently. She planned to wait for the other immortal plume to wake up, but when she remembered that it was the human civilization, she was curious. In her heart, the immortal plume was the strongest. That human civilization actually made the immortal plume revere it. What? Who knew that as soon as she arrived at the human civilization, her wings would be cut off, and the one who did it was unknown. She could not tolerate it. Absolutely not. South Spirit was shocked. Human civilization? You mean a human can teleport? Yes, Patriarch South Spirit. Little Yulu, Do you know the consequences of lying to the patriarch? Yulu knows. If I lie to the patriarch, I will die a horrible death. That's a problem. The 9th base has been destroyed. Now the remaining humans can actually master teleportation, and there's an unknown by their side. They bullied the weak and cut off one of your wings. When have I, the immortal plume, ever suffered such humiliation? No matter what the reason is, let's fight. Yulu was excited. She could finally take revenge. She looked up to the sky and screamed, full of excitement. The South Spirit Patriarch also looked up to the sky and screamed. The next moment, on the tree crown, eggs cracked open one by one. Under the tree, countless creatures were shocked. For so many years, the immortal plume had always awakened one by one. At most, 2 would awaken at once. Now, so many had awakened at once. Was the sky falling? Luin had come. He was called over by Master Greengrass and was being forcibly recruited to participate in the war. Luin, the unknown, is being forcibly recruited to participate in the war. May I ask if you want to participate? 8 Color asked. Luin was dissatisfied. The frequency of being forcibly recruited is too high. I don't want to die. May I ask if you want to participate? 8 Color repeated. Luin said, my human civilization has just been attacked. I don't want to participate. The unknown cannot protect us. Please confirm. Do you refuse to participate? Lu Yin's eyes flashed. He actually wanted to test 8 Color. He guessed that the target of this war would be either the Jade Universe or the Immortal Plume. The old man from the Jade Universe was very active. He even asked Bai Sei to help him search for the unknown. As for the Immortal Plume, he left a door that might lead to a war. Whether it was the Jade Universe or the Immortal Plume, he wanted to participate in the war. The Jade Universe was related to the 7 Treasures Heavenly Toad clan. He wondered how Boss and the others were doing. Regardless, they had helped him a lot. As for the Immortal Plume, he wanted to participate in the war and use the unknown to get rid of a few of them. It would be best if he could kill Yulu so that the human civilization would feel more at ease. However, 8 Color did not seem to care at all. He could not test it. Luin, please confirm. Do you refuse to participate? 8 Color asked again. Luin said, if the target is the Immortal Plume, I can participate. 8 Color, you added me for the same purpose. You want to deal with the Immortal Plume, right? The unknown rules are not to reveal the target of the compulsory recruitment. Luin, please confirm. Do you refuse to participate? Luin had a headache. He thought about it and said, okay, I refuse. The frequency of being forcibly recruited should not be so high. He did not know when the next war would be. Perhaps by then he would have broken through to the Eternal Realm and would have more power to protect himself. Thinking back to the battle against the Mud Kingdom, and Biluo's power still made him fearful. Since that was the case, he would refuse first. You can refuse, but you must worship the Divine Tree. Please worship the Divine Tree as soon as possible to confirm your color. What? Why do I have to worship the Divine Tree if I refuse to participate? What you refuse to participate in is not a person but a color. You have to confirm the color that you represent. Luin, you have to worship the Divine Tree and confirm that it is your color before you can refuse to participate. Why didn't you say so earlier? Is there anything that can't be done? 8 Color asked back. Luin was speechless. This was normal for the unknown, but he really did not want to go to Trace. It was too dangerous. After worshipping the Divine Tree, he had to return the Divine Power lines. He had 3 lines and did not want to return any of them. He thought about it and said, okay, then I will participate. 8 Color said, please confirm. Do you want to participate? Yes. Let's go immediately. So soon? Lu Yin's consciousness left Trace and teleported to Master Grass. There was a door in front of him. Luin took out Mount Supreme and Master Grass went in. He knew that he could not refuse. Luin was about to step through the door, but after thinking about it, he took out the hanging coffin and lay in it before entering the door. The unknown was in such a hurry to participate. It was obvious that they did not have the initiative. Who knew what was going on the other side of the door? After passing through the door, he saw a familiar tree, the Immortal Plume Tree. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. The target of the forced participation was the Immortal Plume? No wonder they were in such a hurry. What was the reason? Was it because of his own door? In the distance, doors opened one after another, and all sorts of civilizations appeared from the other side. Just like the Muddy Water Kingdom War, some civilizations ran away as soon as they appeared, some civilizations wanted to fight, and some civilizations could not even run away. Especially this time, when facing the Immortal Plume civilization, doors kept appearing and breaking. Just as Lu Yin passed through the door, a huge bird appeared above his head. It was not an immortal plume, but it had a teleportation method that was close to teleportation. The bird's target was not Lu Yin but the door. Lu Yin did not want it to destroy the door, open the hanging coffin and use Heaven's Eye. Purple Eye power instantly suppressed the void, and the bird's claws were only an inch away from the door. It could be said that it had already touched it, but it was this inch that made it unable to move. It screeched, and flames burned on the surface of its body, burning the void and turning into hot feathers that stretched out continuously. It actually wanted to burn the Purple Eye power. At the same time, vitality and immortal matter were released crazily, and the entire surrounding stars turned red. Lu Yin's eyes were cold. It was not an immortal plume, but a very ordinary immortal life. Go. He took a step forward and teleported in front of the bird. He raised his hand and forcefully shook the world that the bird could not see. Chapter 4374. The bird's eyes were filled with disdain. Did a mere scoundrel really think he could fight against it? It opened its mouth and spat out almost pure black flames. There was also a ball in the flames. The ball posed a slight threat to Lu Yin, but it was only a slight threat. Lu Yin shook his arm and his power bombarded the void, preventing the black flames from approaching him. His entire body withered and he directly grabbed the black ball. He caught it. When he touched it, he felt as if he was about to melt. His arm quickly recovered. Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. What a strong destructive power. It could heal his withered body, which was equivalent to hurting him. This bird was definitely not ordinary since it could live in the immortal plume civilization. However, Lu Yin's eyes suddenly widened. In his palm, the black ball shattered with a soft bang. The shattered black ball gathered the extremely high temperature of the black flames. Lu Yin pushed it horizontally towards the bird. The bird was shocked. What monster? It remembered that this creature appeared in the unknown hanging coffin. And it looked like this? Human? The bird immediately retreated. Its speed was comparable to teleportation, causing time to stop. But in front of it, Lu Yin appeared and slammed down with his palm. The extremely high temperature of the black flames bombarded the bird's body. The bird let out a shrill cry. Human, you are a human. Lu Yin snorted. This bird was nothing special. It was extremely fast and had black flames. As long as these 2 points were dealt with, it would be too easy to deal with it. But looking at the distance, how many people could truly suppress this bird? Even an eternal life that conformed to the laws of the universe would find it difficult to do so. Lu Yin used the extremely high temperature of the black flames to melt part of the bird's body. He grabbed the bird's neck with one hand and hit the bird's head with his knee. The bird was hit hard and its head was crushed. Then Lu Yin's arm fell, shattering half of the bird's body. The bird let out a final wail and completely fainted. Lu Yin threw it into Mount Supreme. This guy couldn't resist. In this way he had the time to look at the battlefield. And inside Mount Supreme, Master Grass looked at the miserable bird in shock. How long had it been? To be able to severely injure an eternal life, how strong was Lu Yin now? On the battlefield, there were many more eternal life than in the war with the Mudwater Kingdom. On the Immortal Plume's side, in addition to the Immortal Plume's eternal life realm Immortal Plume, there were also eternal life birds. The one he had just killed was one of them. As for the unknown side, or rather, not any side, just the side that the unknown had used the door to attract had several eternal life forms. It was clear that they didn't want to participate in the battle at all, but as soon as they appeared, the door was shattered by the Immortal Plume. He didn't know if he should say that Xianling was arrogant or something else. She had forcibly left behind a few more Eternal Realm enemies. It didn't take long for Lu Yin to disappear. He had been targeted. His battle with Fei Niao had been quick and ruthless. It could be said that it was the fastest battle Lu Yin had finished since he had become a rogue and fought against an Eternal Realm expert. This battle had also attracted Xianling's attention. An Immortal Plume appeared in front of Lu Yin's eyes, and it raised its sharp claws to swipe at Lu Yin. Its terrifying aura locked down the void, and it was not something that the bird from before could compare to. Lu Yin hurriedly retreated. This immortal feather was definitely an existence that conformed to 2 laws, and it gave him a very strong sense of oppression. He didn't want to fight head-on. Human, you can teleport. How did you get it? Xianling shouted and disappeared in an instant. Lu Yin hurriedly disappeared as well. He kept appearing and disappearing as he chased after Xianling in the starry sky. This battlefield was huge and it didn't just revolve around that tree. At least, Lu Yin didn't see any other unknowns. After all, he was facing an immortal feather that could teleport. Distance had lost its meaning. Lu Yin kept teleporting, and every time he teleported, he would travel at the speed of an eternal realm expert that had taken 20 years. He didn't dare to completely expose the maximum distance that he could teleport. This immortal feather was chasing after him relentlessly, using all sorts of methods to suppress Lu Yin. However, since they were both teleporting, it was very difficult for others to break through the immortal feather's defenses. It was also very difficult for the immortal feather itself to break through Lu Yin's defenses. "Human, why do you know how to teleport? Which stronghold are you from?" Xianling shouted. Lu Yin shouted coldly, "What's your name again?" "Mingyu." "It seems like you understand our human civilization very well. Answer me or die. You're still allowing me to live on this battlefield?" Lu Yin sneered. He stopped and turned around. He held Go Lien in his hand and its vitality surged. His eye power suppressed all life as he slashed. Facing him head-on, Mingyu's purple eye power was oppressive. As it watched Go Lien fall and enter its body, its gaze became extremely sharp. It raised its claws to block the attack. Bang! There was a loud bang and the void was split horizontally. It was like the surface of a boiling water that extended endlessly into the distance. It even extended to the surroundings of the large tree and devoured all life. Regardless of whether it was the birds on Xianling's side or the civilized creatures that had been lured in by the door, once they were touched by this aftershock, they would not be able to escape unless they were at the eternal realm. Lu Yin gripped Go Lien tightly and pressed it down. His gaze met Mingyu's, and he had not expected that this attack would not even be able to break through Mingyu's claws. Mingyu's body slowly fell. It had not expected that an existence like itself, which was compatible with two laws, would actually be pressed down by a scoundrel. This was unforgivable, especially since this was a human. A mere human that should be mocked and toyed with had actually suppressed Mingyu. This was unforgivable. Mingyu hissed, and a rumbling sound that could be seen with the naked eye spread outwards. Lu Yin retreated step by step, and the pressure made it difficult for him to breathe. This feeling? The feather god's spear? A feather shot towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed and he teleported away. The feather god's spear pierced through the heavens, leaving behind a ripple as it shot into the distance. It looked very ordinary. Mingyu's eyes darkened, and it understood the feather god's spear. This human knew how to teleport and he also had some understanding of the Xian feather. He must have inherited it from Jiolei and it had to be killed. In the distance, Lu Yin exhaled. That attack had severely injured Master Bitter Lamp, Master Grass and Heaven carrying immortality. It was the Xian feather's killer move, and it had the ability to fuse and transfer. It seemed that no external force could stop it, but it looked very ordinary. If one did not pay attention, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. This was especially true for Mingyu, who was even stronger than Yu Lu. Fortunately, he had learned about it beforehand. However, it was still not enough. He still did not understand the Xian feather enough. As he thought about this, he continued to teleport while contacting 8 colors. 8 colors, tell me everything you know about the Xian feather. Of course, this is war. The forced war had come too quickly, and 8 colors had no time to tell Lu Yin about the Xian feather at the first opportunity. However, Lu Yin had been attacked the moment he entered the battlefield, so it was only now that he could ask about it. Lu Yin teleported and avoided the battlefield, searching for other unknown locations as he listened to 8 colors' reports. This war was much more intense and dangerous than the one with Mudwater Country. Before the war with Mudwater Country, he could leisurely read the information on Mudwater Country in Jizong, but now he could not. In front of him, the void was pierced and there was a ripple. Lu Yin turned and saw Mingyu in the distance. The strange bird was staring at him. He kept teleporting and did not get close to the tree. This was not the only battlefield. The Immortal Master had said that there were 10 Xian feather. He did not know how many Xian feather were here, but there must be some extremely powerful ones. He did not want to encounter them. The only sense of security came from the fact that the unknowns had sent out their own experts. Teleport continuously. 8 colors did not lose track of the small portal at all. After listening for a long time, Lu Yin was dissatisfied. Is this all you can tell me? You don't have any information about this Mingyu that I encountered? 8 colors replied, the unknowns had a war with the Xian feather, but the full-scale war was a long time ago. There were occasional battles here, but they did not expand. Not every Xian feather can survive until now. Since the full-scale war with the Xian feather, it is estimated that almost half of the Xian feather have been replaced. Lu Yin was shocked. The Xian feather can teleport, but it can still be exchanged for so many. Who killed it? The dangers of the square-inch space are greater than you think, especially teleportation. There are pros and cons compared to the Xian Feather's teleportation. Lu Yin, your teleportation is safer, 8 Colors said. With that, the portal disappeared. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. There were no absolutes in the world. Absolute good would also bring about absolute bad. The Xian Feather relied on teleportation to travel freely through the square-inch space, which meant that it had personally experienced the most dangerous aspect of the square-inch space. This aspect, perhaps even the unknowns might not be able to fully understand. It was like a traveler who explored every corner of the desert and died quickly, but another traveler was fixed at a certain spot and could live to the end of his life. No matter how powerful the former traveler was, there would be a time when he was unstoppable. The information about the Xian Feather introduced by 8 Colors made Lu Yin fearful. The Xian Feather civilization's absolute technique was teleportation. With the inherited talent of 1,000 feathers, 1,000 transformations, coupled with teleportation, it could be said that they could escape almost 99% of the dangers. Most importantly, they had the power of inheritance, the eternal dream. The eternal dream could accelerate time to wear away the karmic restraints. This time was not a tributary of the river of time, but the master of the river of time. Coupled with this was the Xian Feather's inheritance that was compatible with the laws of the universe, the unification of 10,000 paths. The unification of 10,000 paths could allow the Xian Feather to devour the laws of other immortal realms to strengthen its own laws. Generally speaking, the immortal realms were compatible with the laws of the universe. If they wanted to strengthen themselves, they could only cultivate and comprehend by themselves. This was not a realm, but it was more difficult than a realm. However, the Xian Feather was different. They only needed to continuously hunt down the immortal realms and then devour the laws of the universe. Although this would increase the karmic restraints, coupled with the eternal dream, this drawback was perfectly solved. No matter how one looked at it, the combination of the eternal dream and the unification of 10,000 paths was an absolute technique. This meant that the Xian Feather civilization had 2 absolute techniques. One was to escape, and the other was to continuously strengthen themselves. It was simply terrifying. Previously, Lu Yin's understanding of the Xian Feather was only limited to teleportation. Now, when he looked at the big tree again, his eyes were filled with deep fear and killing intent. If they were not stopped, the Xian Feather civilization would dominate the square-inch space sooner or later. Of course, this was only in theory. The unknowns would not let the Xian Feather civilization succeed. However, if they wanted to stop it, they would have to start a war. Now they were starting a war. Lu Yin did not expect that there would be creatures in the square-inch space that could devour immortal life and conform to the laws of the universe. If the Muddy Kingdom was a hooligan in the square-inch space, then the Xian Feather was a villain. Chapter 4375. The scenes that he had seen and heard before appeared in his mind. Xianling was the mortal enemy that the human civilization had to eliminate, just like the unknown. In front of him, the feather tore through the void and Lu Yin dodged it. This was the Feather God's spear, and it was Xian Yu's killing move. It originated from the universal laws of the myriad Daos returned to one, and it could break through all obstacles. It could fuse the power of the enemy and transfer that power at the same time, and its strength corresponded to the myriad Daos returned to one. Therefore, Reverend Ku Dang and the others couldn't withstand this attack at all. As far as the eye could see, this immortal plume could definitely be considered a mystical species. However, there were differences between each immortal plume and immortal plume. Every immortal plume had its own unique way of fighting. 8 Colors had told him a few of the immortal plume's unique universe rules and methods, but there was no mention of Mingyu. Unknowable did not understand Mingyu. He could only deal with it by himself. In this war, Lu Yin's goal was to kill Xianling as much as possible. Feather God's spear. Lu Yin dodged, but this time he did not teleport away. Instead, he stood where he was and looked into the distance. Mingyu's gaze was sharp as she teleported closer. The sharp claws descended upon Lu Yin. The God Sealing Catalog appeared. Golden light shone, and the triple firmament sword will appeared. The Sword Dao River. The sharp claws easily tore apart the Sword Dao River. His sharpness did not decrease in the slightest. Lu Yin's eyelids twitched. Mingyu's claw attack gave him the same feeling as Clay Blade's slash. It was a terrifying killing force that could easily tear apart the river of Sword Dao. Mingyu's strength was not below Clay Blade's, and it might even surpass him. The seemingly disorderly sharp claws actually contained battle techniques, giving off a feeling of returning to simplicity. It was as if he had been dragged into a slaughterhouse of wild beasts. Lu Yin continued to retreat as he raised his hand and slashed with his path sword. Pang Mingyu's sharp claws paused, and his vision blurred for a moment. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Yin moved closer and unleashed his absorption technique. He punched Mingyu viciously. Mingyu was sent flying by a single punch. Lu Yin held Go Lian in his hand and attacked from above. Flash. Bang. The claw blocked the attack, and Mingyu stared at Lu Yin in astonishment. You've also comprehended karma? A little, Lu Yin barked. The karmic heavenly Tao was formed. Thousand faces karma, heavenly finger wheel. Mingyu flapped her wings. Feather god spear. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed, and he immediately retracted his hand. He could not meet the feather god's spear head on. In terms of absolute killing power, he was much weaker than Mingyu. As the feather god's spear brushed past his ear, Lu Yin turned around and unleashed his path sword. Bright rain teleported away. It was fearful of karma. It flapped its wings and flapped them. The starry sky shrank as if a formless hand was compressing it. Lu Yin immediately teleported away. Mingyu was filled with hatred. He felt the helplessness of fighting against teleportation. In the past, they were the ones who made others feel helpless. No matter how others attacked, they just needed to run when the situation was bad. But now, someone was actually using this trick to disgust them, forcing them to stop their attacks. Chase, this human must die. Teleportation only existed in the immortal plume civilization. Far off in the distance, Lu Yin saw another battlefield. He saw an immortal feather fluttering about, attacking a pure black space. There were also circles of black halos surrounding it. If he wasn't mistaken, that was an unknown color, black. Lu Yin still wanted to take a closer look, but Mingyu had already caught up to him. She waved her claws at him, tearing through the void as her claws extended endlessly. Lu Yin teleported away again. Mingyu was furious and gave chase. In the distance, the immortal feather attacking the black space was shocked. Teleportation? It stared in a certain direction, raised its wings and covered them. The wings transformed into a phantom that covered the sky in the blink of an eye. Lu Yin looked up. What the hell? He thought that Mingyu had attacked, but the next moment, a wisp of darkness engulfed him, and the phantom wings disappeared. When he looked again, only Mingyu was chasing after him. Lu Yin saw the unease in Mingyu's eyes. Another immortal feather had attacked just now, and it gave him a feeling of fear. It shouldn't be any weaker than Red Hero's strength. He gritted his teeth. The immortal feather civilization and the unknown could wage an all-out war, and there were also unimaginable powerhouses. He distanced himself from that tree and continued to move away. Lu Yin brought Mingyu along as he teleported away. Behind them, feather god spears pierced through the void, tearing apart the starry sky and the universe in front of them. The mother tree was pierced by the feather god spears and collapsed. Lu Yin turned around. He couldn't escape Mingyu's line of sight. If it had been Yu Lu, he would have dealt with her long ago. As for Mingyu, even if crow immobilization gave him a chance to attack, it would be useless. He couldn't kill Mingyu since he couldn't see the end. At that moment, the majestic river of time appeared above his head. Lu Yin looked up in shock. Master of the river of time? Haha, the old man was also on this battlefield. No matter how many times he saw it, he would still be shocked by the vastness of the river of time. He had always wanted to know if the old man had really drawn down the entire river of time. Or was it just a part of it? Lu Yin wasn't the only one who was shocked. Mingyu also looked up at the sky with a nervous expression. All of them were monsters. Lu Yin, go to the crown of the immortal feather origin tree and set up a sourcebox array to block Tell Heaven's senses, the old man said. Lu Yin's expression changed. What? Tell Heaven was a terrifying existence. According to 8 Colors information on the immortal feather civilization, this was an old monster that stood at the peak of the immortal feather civilization. He was also one of the powerhouses that had once surrounded and attacked 9th base. Why would Lu Yin face such an old monster? Haha, don't be afraid. Tell Heaven hasn't awakened yet, and this battle cannot be stopped. Otherwise things will get out of hand. Go. A square box appeared in front of Lu Yin. Find Tell Heaven's egg. Open the box and it will release a shielding sourcebox array. Lu Yin ran away without hesitation and teleported away. He didn't even take the box. What a joke. Tell Lu Yin wanted him to block Tell Heaven? Did he want to die? Even if he couldn't do it, he wouldn't do it. What if this sourcebox array trapped him and Tell Heaven together? He wouldn't be able to complain if he was eaten. The old man wasn't surprised that Lu Yin would run away. Mingyu suddenly appeared in the same spot and grabbed at the box. Ha kid, this isn't something you can take. The box then disappeared, leaving behind a gray ball that slowly dispersed. Mingyu looked up, and the feather god's spear stabbed towards the river of time. Mingyu, kill that human. A voice descended from another immortal feather ancestor. This deep voice was not only heard by Mingyu, but also by Lu Yin, who was far away. He turned around and saw another old man. Just from the voice alone, it was obvious that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. The battle in outer space was becoming more and more intense, and more portals were being opened. Lu Yin did not know how many civilizations could be used, but after this battle, the core space would destroy at least a dozen civilizations. These civilizations had probably been accumulated over countless years. From Lu Yin's perspective, the core space was divided into the weakest civilizations. These civilizations were not unified within the universe, and the Xuanhuan universe had been like this as well. They had no understanding of the core space. Next were the unified universes, which had some understanding of the core space, but did not have an eternal realm expert or an eternal realm expert who only sought self-preservation, similar to the Xuanhuan universe. Next were the Nine Heavens universe, which would destroy any civilization they encountered. They did not want any foreign civilizations to discover that there was more than one eternal realm expert, and they feared the core space. Next were the quasi-fishing civilizations, which were similar to the Seven Treasures Heavenly Toad. They did not fear fishing civilizations, but they had not reached the level of a fishing civilization. Next were the fishing civilizations, which Lu Yin had come into contact with more of. It couldn't be helped, as weak civilizations were either destroyed or ignored. Numbers were meaningless, and only civilizations at this level could be remembered. Then came the unknowable. Civilizations that made use of civilizations could be destroyed, used, and done as they pleased. The immortal plume civilization was the same. They hunted eternal realm experts and did not care about civilizations. They could destroy or ignore them. Regardless of why fishing civilizations wanted to destroy civilizations, it was too simple for a civilization at the unknowable level to do so. All they had to do was discover and then wait for an opportunity to exploit it. It was that simple. If there were any stronger civilizations, Lu Yin thought of the ninth base, as well as the springboard civilization that he had known about the earliest but had been completely clueless about. That was the springboard for all the fishing civilizations, and it had laid out the entire core space. How domineering was that? He suddenly wondered if that springboard civilization had also participated in the siege of the ninth base. It was not impossible, as the ninth base's influence had been too great at its peak. It was impossible for the springboard civilization not to know about it. Lu Yin thought about it as a few birds in front of him rammed into the door, but he casually killed them. They were merely creatures on the level of crossing calamity. Suddenly, a cube box fell down in front of him. Lu Yin's expression changed. When did this happen? In addition to the cube box, there was also a trace of gray flowing, as if it was incompatible with the deep and dark universe. This was the power of time. Little guy, you owe me a life. Lu Yin looked up and did not see the river of time. Ah, how did this old guy target him? You can't use my life to repay it. I refuse. Ah, don't worry, I won't take your life, but once the oracle comes out, it's hard to say. You and I might die. Lu Yin frowned. I don't want to face the oracle. No one wants to, but only you can do this. Do you see the immortal plume tree? There's an immortal plume tree guarding it, and we're all stalled and unable to cross it. Only you can teleport in. Put down the origin scroll and leave. No one can stop you. Lu Yin was silent. It's just a small matter to be rewarded based on merit on the battlefield, but if you do it, you can get a 5-star mission reward. Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. 5-star mission reward? He was even more unwilling to do it. If it was that simple, why would the reward be so high? Aha, of course. This is my promise to you. I'll help you complete the 5-star mission and you can choose the reward. The old guy's tone was relaxed as if there were no enemies. This is an unknown war. Why are you paying such a high price? Is the price very high? Perhaps, but the unknown is not allowed to lose in any war. This is the bottom line. If the oracle awakens, the unknown will lose? The oracle is not invincible, but the price to block it is too high. You and I might die. Little guy, your human civilization will also be destroyed. You can't forget that the immortal plume tree knows that you can teleport, and it also knows where the 3 universes are. Chapter 4376. Lu Yin's eyes flashed and he muttered, I still don't want to do it. Aha, you will do it. A small door appeared beside him and 8 Color's voice sounded out. Lu Yin used the origin scroll to block the heaven's perception. This is your mission. Lu Yin was about to retort, but 8 Color continued. A mission issued in the name of the unknown is a battlefield order. and it is absolutely effective against the unknown. This is a battlefield. I repeat, this is a battlefield. Lu Yin's expression darkened. On the battlefield, everyone obeyed orders. He had gone from a normal person to a cultivator, and now he had gone from a cultivator to a normal person. Cultivators could not transcend everything. No matter how high their cultivation was, they were still humans. They had walked step by step from being ordinary, and what they experienced was fighting with others, or rather, fighting with their own species. Cultivation could only raise the level of the environment, but it could not change the essence. An order? He was hearing this word again, but this time he was the one saying it to others. Hee little guy, don't tell me you've forgotten why the unknowns invited you to join them. Looking back, do you think your human civilization would have survived if you hadn't joined the unknowns? The old man said slowly. His words sent a chill down Lu Yin's spine. Only by truly understanding the unknown could one truly see the distance between them. The more he saw, the more he felt that he had been naive. Every step was filled with coincidences and opportunities, and one wrong step would have been the end of them. Lu Yin suddenly thought back to when Lan Meng had accepted the mission to deal with the three universes. Qinglian Yu clearly had the ability to kill him, but he had not done so. Lan Meng had blocked the unknown. If Lan Meng died, who would be the next to deal with the human civilization? De Mao? Er Mao? Or Old Ha? No one could say for sure. Many times the enemy could not be killed. Although it was frustrating, it was a fact. Humans had suffered the same grievances, and the unknown would also suffer, but they could not see it. In this world, who would not lower their heads? No one could always look down on the world. Lu Yin looked at the square box in front of him. 8-color, I can accept this mission, but I can't do it alone. I'll be facing skyward. You know what kind of existence skyward is? Even if it's still within the eternal dream, it's not something I can face. I need someone to accompany me. This request is not too much. The 8-colored voice said, sure. Who is it? Yu Che, Lu Yin answered without hesitation. The old man was surprised. He had assumed that Lu Yin would choose Red Hero to go with him since she was Lu Yin's sworn enemy. He had never expected that Lu Yin would choose Yu Che. Of course, Lu Yin would not choose Red Hero as he and Red Hero were enemies. If possible, he wanted to use Tell the Sky to kill Red Hero, but Red Hero would also want to use Tell the Sky to kill Lu Yin. Besides, what kind of existence was Tell the Sky? Was this something he could use? One must know one's limits. In the face of a lawsuit, they had to find someone they could trust to face it together and escape together. Clear was the best choice. That was because Che had given Xiang City to him. Although he was also an enemy, he knew very well that Che wanted to use him to seize Xiang City. Although he did not know what method Che would use, Che had done so, and he seemed very confident. Benefits were more reliable than anything else. If Che wanted to obtain Xiang City, he would have to use him. In that case, he would not allow him to be killed by Su Tian. Furthermore, he was the last person Yu Wu had seen before his death. Whatever Yu Wu had said to him, Che would definitely be interested. It could very well be related to the secret of controlling Xiang City. Che would definitely not allow him to be killed. Che is in another battlefield. He cannot be mobilized. 8-color refused. Lu Yin frowned. Find an unknown from this battlefield and switch with him. 8-color's voice sank. This is a battlefield. The reason you joined the unknown is to deal with Xianling Lu Yin. This is the first and last time I'm warning you. If Tell the Sky awakens, we will have to pay an unimaginable price. Your human civilization will have to pay an unimaginable price. Lu Yin took a deep breath. This threat made him feel a chill. Fine. Send anyone to come with me. He grabbed the square box. Is this an origin scroll? I've already taught you how to use it. Little guy, don't let Tell the Sky awaken. Even without 8-color's threat, aren't you afraid that Tell the Sky will accompany you Lu to destroy your human civilization? The old man chuckled. Lu Yin's expression changed. His emotions were complicated. Of course, this was what he was worried about. Xianling had to lose this battle, and it had to be defeated so badly that it could not cause trouble for the human civilization. This was because he did not know the reason why Xianling and the unknown were fighting. He did not know if this was the reason why the portal placed here had not been destroyed. He was most worried that after this battle, Yu Lu would tell Xianling about him. With his control of teleportation, Xianling would not let him go. The human civilization had to be prepared for this battle. In this battle, he had to do his best to injure Xianling. In all directions, the stars were compressed. Using Mingyu's method, Lu Yin looked at Xianling from afar. This tree, with one teleportation, could cross the distance of 30 years of an eternal life realm speed. Mingyu was shocked. The teleportation distance had increased? This human was hiding something. How hateful. It chased after him. Lu Yin teleported again and approached the Xianling tree. At this time, the small portal appeared and the 8-colored voice said, "Yellow is waiting for you in front. It has its opponent. You only have one chance. Take the yellow Xianling tree crown and activate the origin scroll. If you can't do it, Xianling will chase after you and you will not have another chance. Tell me the location." The center of the tree crown. Lu Yin opened his third eye and felt many gazes on him. There was a dazzling golden light in front of him. It was the yellow unknown. It was Air Mao whom Lu Yin had called out before. He did not expect Air Mao to accompany him. This Air Mao was not friendly to him and hated the human civilization. But he had no choice. Behind Lu Yin, the feather god spear appeared. Mingyu attacked instantly. Lu Yin teleported and appeared in the golden light. A shield? While he was stunned, Xianling arrived. Lu Yin touched the shield and teleported. Xianling appeared in front and behind him. One was Xianling who was fighting against Air Mao, and the other was Mingyu. Mingyu watched Lu Yin disappear with the shield and then saw the Xianling in front of him. "Oh no," it screeched. On the Xianling tree, one of the Xianling trees spread its wings. Strange birds of all shapes and sizes flew around the tree crown. Lu Yin brought the shield and teleported into the tree crown. He teleported to the center again and looked at one of the Xianling trees. "This is the one that has been guarding here. Go over." The voice of the shield sounded. It was Air Mao. Lu Yin did not expect Air Mao to be a shield. He teleported over. Past the Xianling trees also teleported and attacked. Lu Yin lifted the shield and said, "Air Mao, block it." The Xianling tree's claws collided with a loud sound. This attack caused Lu Yin to vomit blood. This Xianling tree was much stronger than Mingyu. It was definitely at the peak of 2 or even close to 3 laws. It was no wonder that Old Man Kiki and the others could not break in. In front of him was a giant egg that emitted a hazy glow. Gray swirled around it as if dark clouds had appeared above the egg. This was the power of time itself. Just looking at this egg caused Lu Yin to feel fear from the bottom of his heart. It was not fear but an instinctive fear. It was like a mortal facing a giant and falling into a giant's battlefield. At the same time, Xianling and Mingyu, who were fighting against Air Mao, charged over. Lu Yin took out the origin scroll, put it down and tapped it. The origin scroll made a soft click. He had succeeded. Lu Yin growled, "Let's go." Bang. The shield was struck by the claws and slammed into Lu Yin's back. Lu Yin took advantage of this opportunity to teleport away with it. Air Mao had no intention of harming Lu Yin. Like Lu Yin, they could only survive by working together. Even Air Mao was in danger at every step. Just as they teleported away, a sourcebox array appeared above the treetop. There was nothing special about it. It was like a flash of light that disappeared in the blink of an eye. Lu Yin did not even have time to look at it, but now was not the time to do so. He teleported away with Air Mao, and just as he was about to push Air Mao away, they had already left the treetop. Air Mao also wanted to push Lu Yin away at the same time. The two stared at each other. "You want to harm me? You want to harm me?" Above him, Xianling attacked. She was facing Air Mao, the one that had been killed. Lu Yin did not hesitate to teleport away. He would leave this guy to Air Mao. He looked back at the treetop and could not understand. If a sourcebox array could be set up, then it could naturally be broken as well. But why would such a simple task make the unknown so concerned? Even Xianling was on guard. There had to be something that he did not understand. But it did not matter. His mission was complete. He thought that Mingyu would continue to chase after him, but after teleporting several times, Lu Yin realized that Mingyu did not chase after him at all. Was she thinking of a way to break the sourcebox array? He looked at the treetop, which had exceeded the maximum range of his mirroring technique. He then looked around him. Door after door shattered, and Lu Yin frowned as he increased his speed. Although Xianling had been destroying the doors before, she had not been able to do so quickly. Now, not only were Xianling's subordinates attacking, but even Mingyu was destroying the doors. He felt that something was amiss, and he teleported to the place where he had placed the door. However, the door had already been destroyed, and there were still traces of its destruction in the void. There was a shriek behind him, and Lu Yin casually waved his hand, slicing through the void and killing the bird. He then teleported away from this place. No matter what Xianling was planning, he had to escape first. After leaving the immortal plume tree, Lu Yin found a barren planet to rest. There were no battles nearby and he rested for half a year. During this time, 8 colors had not contacted him even once. He teleported closer to the immortal plume tree's battlefield, and it was still the same as it had been half a year ago. Mao and the others all had their own opponents, and Xianling was still destroying the doors. Now, not even 1% of the doors remained, and they were scattered throughout the universe. Lu Yin suddenly did not understand this battle. Xianling was not chasing after him, but rather, it was constantly destroying the doors. What was the point of this? The civilizations that it had attracted were not enough to pose a threat to Xianling. Or could it be that Xianling's goal was not to destroy the doors that had attracted civilizations, but to destroy other doors instead? For example, the door that led to the location of the immortal plume tree. The Apex mobile version website. Chapter 4377. When he thought of this, he suddenly understood that the immortal plume's teleportation required a time difference. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. The greatest advantage of teleportation was its distance. How could he have forgotten about this? When the Hive civilization attacked the human civilization, it was because of the distance advantage. Once the distance was increased, the humans would definitely lose. Their response was to lure the Hive civilization into a certain range for a decisive battle. Now the immortal plume had the same plan. They probably wanted to destroy all the portals and then combine all the immortal plume to gain the distance advantage. The unknown also had a way to teleport, but the portals required time. Even 1 second was enough for the immortal plume to attack. 1 immortal plume was 1 attack, but what about 10? Lu Yin looked into the distance. This should be the case. He took a deep breath. If he could think of it, the 8 colors would definitely be able to as well. He never thought of himself as the smartest. The unknown understood the immortal plume far better than he did. It was impossible for it not to see through it. However, they had no choice. Teleportation was an absolute method. Even if they could see through the immortal plume's goal, how could they break it? The only thing the unknown could do was to fix the battlefield at the immortal plume tree from the beginning. This was the immortal plume's nest, and they could not give it up. The other battlefield should be at the unknown whereabouts. That was the unknown's nest, and they could not give it up either. Both sides were attacking each other's weakness. The entire battle was clear. Lu Yin retreated. He had already completed a mission. As long as the 8 colors did not rush him, he would hide first. At most, he would say that he was injured. What happened next would be tragic. Just as Lu Yin expected, not long after, all the portals were destroyed. A vast and terrifying aura shook the heavens and stretched out endlessly. Even where Lu Yin was, he felt an indescribable pressure. It was at the level of Patriarch Shan. An existence that matched the 3 laws of the universe had made a move. Was it an immortal plume or an unknown? Lu Yin looked into the distance. He was not going there. Far away, around the immortal plume tree, immortal plume soared and attacked Mao, the old man and the black unknown. 3 more immortal plume came. They were the 3 immortal plume that were fighting in the other battlefield. They instantly returned and surrounded this battlefield. Mao fled in a hurry, but he could only resist the teleportation. The old man was sent running away. The absolute darkness outside of the unknown darkness was also pierced through like a broken cave. But then another portal appeared. Big Mao and Yu Che attacked at the same time. The immortal plume tree had become the only battlefield. It was so intense that Lu Yin didn't want to get involved. He saw the Lord's river of time being drawn out. The old man had appeared again. He saw the surging divine power boiling. That must be De Mao's power. Over at Xianling's side, Feather God's spear would pierce through the starry sky from time to time. The universe was being destroyed bit by bit like a flat surface. The entire area seemed incomparably small. Lu Yin retreated even further, as 8 colors had no energy to deal with him. Actually, he wanted to get closer to the battlefield to take a look. At this time he should be able to see something such as Clear's true strength, the unknown form of black, and the 8 colors. Perhaps even the 8 colors had joined the battle. But he couldn't go. In this kind of war, the slightest carelessness would result in the end. While the battle was intense, Lu Yin was also suffering from the weight. Suddenly all the pressure disappeared. He abruptly looked into the distance. What was going on? In the distant battlefield, all the immortal feathers instantly disappeared, leaving behind only the unknown. With the immortal plume tree and the shielded heaven. Return immediately. All the unknown opened the door and entered heaven. After all, the door's movement was not as fast as teleportation. The moment they returned to heaven, the immortal feathers had already launched a round of attacks on heaven. On the ground, almost half of the endless door was destroyed. The soaring immortal feathers danced around the divine tree and let out a cheerful chirp. The moment you tried your best to shield heaven, you had already lost. There are some prices you don't want to pay, but you have to pay a greater price. Heaven shook heaven. 8 colors responded, let's see if this price is worth it. The immortal plume tree was silent. Lu Yin teleported several times to get closer to the battlefield and looked into the distance. Gone, everyone was gone. The battlefield could move at will. By now, everyone should have moved to heaven. Against the immortal feathers, even the unknown was passive. That's right, since the immortal feathers had run away, their nest should be defenseless. He looked at the immortal plume tree. Would there be something good? Like a turbid treasure? It was very tempting, but after thinking about it, Lu Yin decided to continue hiding. Heaven was still there. Heaven knew if it would suddenly awaken. At this moment, a sword suddenly appeared above the immortal plume tree. It was completely transparent. The moment it appeared, Lu Yin's scalp went numb. It was both horrifying and familiar. It was that sharp edge. That sharp edge that tore apart the meteor realm and the 3 universes and almost killed startled Gate Xianxia. It was a transparent unknown. Lu Yin watched in shock as the transparent sword slashed down from above. Its target was the immortal plume tree. Just when he thought that the immortal plume tree was going to be pierced by the sword, a shocking claw appeared. What followed was a suffocating pressure. The stars changed color. There was only that sharp claw in the sky and the earth. There was only the immortal feather that was slowly walking out. At this moment, the distance of inches was replaced by the immortal feather. Lu Yin only felt that his chest was so tight that he wanted to vomit blood. Layers of pressure swept past. The flying birds that had helped the immortal feather to fight against the various civilizations all crawled and shivered. The immortal plume tree was slightly bent at this moment. It was as if a giant had walked into a kingdom of ants. At this moment, the giant woke up. Heaven. An unfamiliar voice was heard. It came from a transparent unknown. Lu Yin was stunned. That was heaven? Wasn't it blocked? I knew you would ambush me. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Come on. As it spoke, the sharp claw grabbed the transparent blade. There was a crisp bang. Not only did the blade break, but the entire universe also shattered into countless fragments. It was unknown how far the ripples spread. In front of Lu Yin, the void shattered. He hurriedly dodged. Even so, his arm was still scratched with a huge bloody wound. With a flash of the sharp edge, a section of the immortal plume tree's crown was cut off. Heaven and the transparent unknown disappeared together. Lu Yin stood in place and panted heavily. He looked up and saw the immortal plume tree with a section of its crown cut off. As for heaven, it was gone. The next moment, the crown of the immortal plume tree distorted. 2 figures walked out and stood there. One was Mingyu. Lu Yin recognized her. The other was the immortal master? The one who walked out at the same time as Mingyu was the immortal master. Below them, there was a strange bird at the eternal life level. It was still crawling. It was too close to heaven just now. It was so close that it was almost crushed to death. At this moment, a small door appeared beside Lu Yin. 8 colors contacted him. Lu Yin, destroy the immortal plume tree. Lu Yin was still there. He hadn't recovered from heaven's awakening. When he heard 8 colors' words, he suppressed his anger. You already knew that heaven would awaken, didn't you? You even asked me to block it. You're trying to kill me. Heaven's target is not you. The result of this battle is a foregone conclusion. Destroy the immortal plume tree. This battle is over. You will receive the 6 stars mission reward, 8 colors said. Lu Yin's breathing was rapid. He remembered that in the unknown knowledge of human civilization, there were missions that required a 6 stars mission reward to exchange for. Even on this battlefield, he didn't know when he would be able to complete the 6 stars mission reward. After all, he had been forced to complete the 5 stars mission reward. 6 stars mission reward? The immortal plume tree has been dragged away. Heaven has also been taken away. The immortal plume tree doesn't have the power to kill you. Lu Yin, destroy the immortal plume tree. This battle is over. With that, the small door disappeared. Lu Yin clenched his fist and looked into the distance. It was easy to say, but Mingyu was still there. Fortunately, there was also an immortal master. Without the immortal master, Lu Yin really didn't have the confidence to destroy the immortal plume tree. The immortal plume tree was already cautious enough. Mingyu had appeared here to guard against him because he was missing. However, it had made a mistake by bringing the immortal master here. Far away, on top of the immortal plume tree, Mingyu's gaze was cold. Where was that human? They had killed their way to heaven's trace together, but it didn't see that human. It knew that he was still nearby. Although it was confident in getting rid of that human, it couldn't take the risk for the safety of the immortal plume tree. This battle had taken a lot of effort to form this situation, giving Heaven's ancestor a chance to kill the unknown envoy of balance. The outcome of the battle had been decided. However, it wasn't enough for it. It wouldn't feel comfortable if it didn't kill that human. On the side, xianxia emitted a faint glow. Luo-chan was on top of it. The immortal master looked into the distance. It had been brought here before the battle and only appeared now to protect the immortal plume tree at the last moment. It didn't want to participate in this battle, but it had no choice. It couldn't go against the immortal plume tree's orders. The location of the final battle is in Heaven's Trace. It should be safe here, the immortal master's voice rang out. Mingyu's tone was low. The immortal master didn't understand. You're missing one? Mingyu said, there's a human among the unknowns. He's a scoundrel, but he comprehended teleportation. If I don't kill him, I won't feel at ease. The immortal master's originally calm heart was stirred by Mingyu's words. Wasn't the unknown's human scoundrel Luin? Luin was nearby? For some reason it felt uneasy. Why was this happening? Because Luo-chan had been captured, the Hive civilization had suffered heavy losses. It had been forced to bring Luin to the Seven Treasures Heavenly Toad clan as a bodyguard. After that, it had settled its grudges with that human civilization. However, it shouldn't feel this uneasy about Luin. In fact, it even felt apprehensive. So why was it like this? Wait, did he comprehend teleportation? Luin knew teleportation? The immortal master was stunned. Thinking back, when did he comprehend teleportation? That shouldn't be the case. How could a human know teleportation? That was Immortal Plume's ultimate technique. Luo-chan knew it. It suddenly recalled the time when Luo-chan had been captured. Was it that time? If that was the case, Luin had already comprehended teleportation when he went to the Seven Treasures Heavenly Toad clan with it. That's right. That was why he was so fearless and wasn't afraid that the Immortal Master would attack him. However, the Immortal Master's uneasiness didn't stem from Luin knowing teleportation. Where did this uneasiness come from? The Immortal Master didn't know that it had already experienced a battle with Luin. The karma of that battle had been severed by Lu Yin's path sword, and it had forgotten everything. Apex mobile version website. Chapter 4378. It had forgotten that it had seen Luin capture Luo-chan with teleportation, that the human civilization had severely injured it, and that it had learned about Yu Lu and Xianling's situation. It had forgotten all of these. The only thing it remembered was that it had suddenly appeared in an unfamiliar starry sky and was severely injured. However, it did not know who had injured it. Now, Mingyu's words and the instinctive uneasiness in its heart made it think of a certain fact. It couldn't be. But if it was him, why did he let it go? The Divine Master could not understand. What's wrong with you? Mingyu asked as he glanced at the Divine Master coldly. The Divine Master said, why can humans teleport? Mingyu stared at Xianxia for a while before looking away. How would I know? But other than Xianling, no civilization is allowed to teleport. This human must die. After this battle, we'll kill our way to that human civilization. Yu Lu has been watching them for a long time. The Divine Master fell silent. Kill their way to that human universe? The Hive civilization had done this before. They thought that they had an absolute advantage, but in the end that was what happened. Other than their strength, the most terrifying thing about humans was their scheming. It did not want to participate in the war against the human civilization. If Luin could teleport, who knew what else he could do? Go and guard the other side. Be careful. Although that human's teleportation is not complete, other than the range limitation, it's no different from Xianling's. In particular, he's very strong and has escaped from me several times. Don't underestimate him, Mingyu reminded. The Divine Master said, understood. With that, he headed to the other side of the tree crown. Below, strange birds circled around the Xianling's tree, not giving any creatures a chance to take advantage of it. To Xianling, this tree was home. It was extremely important. Although Mingyu had been very cautious when speaking to the Immortal Master, deep down she did not think of Luin as a threat at all. Luin had always avoided her, and the Immortal Master's strength was not any weaker than hers. With these two powerhouses protecting him, Luin would not dare to show himself even if he was nearby. It did not even think about what would happen to Luin. The accident happened so suddenly. In Mingyu's eyes, a figure suddenly appeared, followed closely by the Sword Dao River. The golden light of the God Investiture catalog was glaring and dazzling. Mingyu's gaze turned from shock to anger, and from anger to intense killing intent. This human actually dared to attack it. He raised his claw and waved it. The Sword Dao River was easily torn apart. Mingyu screamed, "Human, you're courting death." On the other side of the crown of the immortal plume tree, the immortal master gazed into the distance. Luyin had actually come. Where did he get the confidence to deal with both the immortal plume tree and Mingyu at the same time? There was eternal life below. Impossible. He couldn't be courting death. There were still experts hiding in the dark. Lu Yin's celestial eye abruptly opened, and purple eye force descended as external eye incarnation appeared. Mingyu's claw tore through the Sword Dao River, and the feather god's spear pierced towards Lu Yin. It had already prepared itself for Lu Yin to escape. This human's sudden attack was definitely not suicidal. This was a ploy to lure it away. Lu Yin stared at the feather god's spear as a black piece of armor appeared in front of him. The feather god's spear ruthlessly pierced the black armor. Mingyu's intense killing intent once again turned into astonishment. Impossible, this human actually blocked his feather god spear? Before it could think further, the separated long river of swordsmanship turned around again and slashed. Mingyu did not believe that Lu Yin could actually block the feather god's spear, and it immediately stabbed out with the feather god's spear one after another, constantly colliding with the external eye incarnation's 15 armor plates. Lu Yin knew that only the 15 plates could block the feather god's spear. After all, the feather god's spear was an absolute power that could seal ancestor Shan, who had fused with 3 laws. However, Mingyu did not know this. It only knew that the external eye incarnation had blocked its feather god spear. It had absorbed eternal life and strengthened the absolute power of myriad Daos coalescence. It should have been able to break through all external attacks, so why had it been blocked? The Sword Dao River ruthlessly slashed at Mingyu, but it was completely unharmed. However, the Dao sword was hidden within the river, and it was trying to sneak an attack on Mingyu. Mingyu suddenly disappeared. Lu Yin's heart sank. He had been discovered. Mingyu appeared behind Lu Yin. Trying to sneak an attack with karma? Human, you underestimate me too much. Mingyu's sharp claws descended and viciously clawed at the external eye incarnation. It wanted to see just how strong this thing's defenses were. Lu Yin frowned, and his body withered as he released his heavenly Tao of karma. He pointed at Mingyu and swept out with 2 fingers, severing karma. Mingyu teleported and disappeared, completely unaffected. At the same time, Lu Yin teleported away to avoid Mingyu's attack. The external eye incarnation could only be used at critical moments. If it was used for a long time, Mingyu could easily see through it. Mingyu continued to stab with the feather god's spear. It was as if the situation had returned to how it was before, and Lu Yin was constantly being chased. The immortal master kept watching, and below the eternal bird was also watching. If Mingyu did not allow them to interfere, they would not interfere. Lu Yin glanced into the distance. The immortal master had no intention of interfering at all. He did not pose a threat to Mingyu. Now they had appeared to protect the immortal plume tree, which was more important than killing him. However, this also meant that he had a way out. If there was no pressure, then there was pressure. Lu Yin's gaze was cold. In the starry sky above his heart, the divine power planet rotated. It was time to move. It was time to use this power. This battlefield was giving him too much pressure. He was actually not qualified to participate in a battle of this level, but for the sake of survival and for the sake of human civilization he had to step out. Fortunately, because he had used it once before, the 3-line divine power transformation could barely maintain a trace of rationality. However, he did not need it now. The red and silver lines of divine power appeared and intersected. In an instant, a glaring light burst out from both eyes. One eye was red, the other was silver. Boiling divine power soared into the sky and turned into a rainbow that pierced through the starry sky. The 2-colored divine power sprinkled down. Although it was not as shocking as the 3-colored divine power, it still caused Mingyu's eyes to jump. What the hell? 2 unknown divine powers? Why did it seem like he had heard of it before? This should not be a power that a scoundrel should possess. The 2-colored divine power turned into a mist that circled around his body. The red and silver in Lu Yin's eyes retracted, and he stared at the stunned Mingyu with a palm strike. The divine power beam bombarded Mingyu. Mingyu raised his sharp claws and waved them. With a boom, the starry sky collapsed and Mingyu was forced back. He looked at the other side in disbelief. What a powerful divine power. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. He took a step forward and charged toward Mingyu. If it had been the 3-colored divine power beam, Mingyu would not have been able to withstand it so easily. Previously, the clay blade had been dented by the 3-colored divine power beam. Both the clay blade and Mingyu were powerhouses that were compatible with two laws of the universe. Their strength was similar. If the three-line divine power could defeat the clay blade, it could defeat Mingyu as well, provided that Mingyu did not escape. Of course, this was based on the power that Mingyu had released. In reality, the immortal plume civilization was much stronger than the muddy country. Mingyu must have some hidden cards. Mingyu's eyes were ferocious. He teleported and appeared above Lu Yin's head. His sharp claws fell. Beside him, the feather god spears surrounded him. If it had been the three-line divine power transformation, Lu Yin would not have thought of dodging. However, he was now using the two-line divine power transformation. His instincts and battle experience were still there. He also teleported to dodge and shot out a divine power beam. In a split second, an intense battle broke out around the immortal plume tree. It was clearly just two creatures, but it felt as if they were fighting an army of thousands of men and horses. They constantly teleported and fought around the tree. Each time, the aftershocks spread to the surroundings and affected the many creatures below. Mingyu realized that she couldn't do anything to Lu Yin at this moment. His divine power had formed a terrifying armor around Lu Yin that her feather god spear could pierce through, but Lu Yin could also dodge it. Lu Yin's divine power attacks combined with the feather god spear's ability to absorb energy when it reached an extreme allowed him to injure Mingyu for the first time. At that moment, the feathers burned. Blood flowed from the corner of Mingyu's mouth. His gaze was extremely gloomy. He was a powerhouse that was compatible with two laws of the universe. However, he had been injured by a rascal from the human civilization. This was unforgivable. Kill, kill, kill. Mingyu's eyes were filled with madness. The feather god spears pierced out without restraint. Some even pierced the immortal plume tree while others pierced the creatures guarding the tree below. Blood splattered across the starry sky. Lu Yin constantly teleported to dodge. The rainbow of divine power was like a colorful lamp that illuminated the starry sky. Occasionally the path sword would pierce Mingyu. Mingyu's eyes were dazed and he did not know what to do for a moment. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Yin once again used his terrifying strength, coupled with the divine power transformation. He tore off a small tuft of fur on Mingyu's head and left a wound on his head. Blood flowed down his head and dripped into his eye sockets. He looked rather miserable. Mingyu suddenly stopped and stood in the starry sky. He looked down blankly and did not move. In Lu Yin's hand, he was still holding onto that tuft of fur. He raised his hand and burned it with divine power, turning it into ashes. He blew away the ashes. His red and silver eyes were filled with evil intent. It's just a strange bird. Kill it and make it into soup. Mingyu looked up. His eyes were unprecedentedly cold. He said something strange in the starry sky. There are lies in the universe and there are true and false guardians. I want to protect you. Even though Lu Yin's mind was being eroded by divine power, he was still stunned. Protect him? Feather god spears suddenly appeared and pierced towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin instinctively wanted to dodge, but when the feather god spears got close, they collided with each other and created dazzling sparks in front of Lu Yin's eyes. Lu Yin looked on in shock. Beside him, not a single feather god spear was piercing towards him. All the feather god spears were being knocked away by the same number of feather god spears. What was going on? Mingyu was hitting his own feather god spears. Something was not right. Lu Yin recalled what Mingyu had just said. There are lies in the universe and there are true and false guardians. Was this the second law of the universe that he fit? Lu Yin immediately teleported and disappeared. Mingyu teleported at the same time. His sharp claws fell and grabbed at Lu Yin's head. Lu Yin raised his hand and shot out a beam of divine power. It collided with the sharp claws and forced Mingyu back. A large number of feather god spears descended, but they were all knocked away by his own feather god spears. Just as he had said, he was protecting Lu Yin. However, he was also the one being attacked. The uneasiness grew stronger. Lu Yin could only keep teleporting and shooting out beams of divine power. Before the feather god spears collided with each other, he would knock them away or pull away. He realized that the feather god spears needed a certain distance to collide with each other. They had to be within a certain range of him. Could this be the world that Mingyu could not see? Just as he was thinking, he heard a voice beside his ear. Mingyu's voice was extremely cold. True and false, guardian. As soon as he finished speaking, all the points around Lu Yin that the feather god spears had collided with seemed to move along with his body. It was as if they had fixed coordinates. They appeared one by one like stars in the night sky, decorating the darkness. Finally, they all fell towards his body. Chapter 4379. Lu Yin teleported, but in an instant, all of these light dots passed through and disappeared along with Lu Yin's teleportation. Far away, Lu Yin appeared and slowly lowered his head. His body was bleeding profusely as the light dots pierced through his body. There were dozens of light dots and Lu Yin was severely injured in an instant. Lu Yin spat out a mouthful of blood and looked into the distance in shock. Ming Yu's lips curled up as he stared at Lu Yin coldly. Do you really think that a mere scoundrel can fight against an existence that is compatible with two universal laws? Furthermore, I'm Ming Yu from Xianling. Who do you think you are? A mere human, a lowly species, dares to challenge someone of a higher realm? Die. As he spoke, he teleported closer to Lu Yin, and the feather god spears stabbed towards him. Lu Yin immediately pulled away, not allowing any of the feather god spears to collide with him within a certain range. However, in the end he was unable to avoid all of the feather god spears. Two feather god spears flashed as they collided, and then they pierced through his body. Lu Yin coughed out blood again and his face turned pale. Even his divine power could not withstand this attack. Ming Yu's sharp claws grabbed at the stars, and the starry sky was like a square inch. He played with the universe and encompassed heaven and earth. He wanted to completely suppress Lu Yin under his claws. On the crown of the tree, the immortal master was silent. Lu Yin was very strong, much stronger than he had expected. He had not seen him for a while, but he could actually fight against Ming Yu with his scoundrel strength. This meant that he could also fight against the immortal master. But so what? Ming Yu was not an ordinary powerhouse. He came from Xianling and was one of the strongest civilizations in the square inch. This person was finished. Lu Yin looked up and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. The pain in his body woke him up, but it was not enough. Ming Yu was too strong and it was difficult for him to control his strength. This was especially true for the guard of truth and falsehood. He could not find a way to resist it in a short period of time. The immortal world could not be forcibly broken, but he could not do it. He was not an immortal realm cultivator, and Ming Yu was much stronger than him. Lu Yin glanced into the distance and then looked at the immortal master. The immortal master still did not intend to make a move. The immortal master and Lu Yin looked at each other, and the immortal master suddenly felt uneasy. How could this be? Lu Yin seemed to want him to make a move. What? Ming Yu's sharp claws descended and viciously swiped at Lu Yin. Back in the Mirage domain, he had asked xuanhuan to use Senior Jiuwen's red umbrella to create a birdcage, but that birdcage was not enough to deal with Ming Yu. After all, Ming Yu's defenses were not something that Lu Yin could easily break through. Furthermore, he did not necessarily need a birdcage to deal with someone like Yu Lu, as crow immobilization was more than enough. Then he would use the pain in his body as the key to awakening, just like how he had used the death of the ancestor of the Mountain Sword sect as the key to maintaining his sanity. Third line, divine power transformation. The sharp claws slammed down on Lu Yin's head. Blue threads of divine power flew out from his body and intersected with the red and silver threads. In an instant, his surging divine power soared into the sky, and the terrifying divine power instantly drowned out his rationality. Lu Yin grabbed at the bleeding wounds on his body, and the pain caused him to sober up. Above his head, the sharp claw descended. He suddenly looked up and roared at the sky as a wave of divine power was released from his body and fiercely attacked the claw. The sharp claws were blocked, and then a terrifying force overturned Ming Yu, causing him to retreat step by step. Ming Yu was aghast. How could this be? Three-colored divine power? The three-colored rainbow exploded high in the sky and turned into smoke that enveloped Lu Yin, forming a cocoon. Ming Yu stared blankly and then screeched. Feather god spears stabbed at the cocoon, piercing through everything. The feather god spears that were blocked by the divine power pierced the cocoon, and most of them sank into it. However, they were blocked by the boiling divine power within the cocoon and could not advance any further. Ming Yu's pupils shrank and he suddenly spread out his wings, releasing all of his power. Feather god spears soared into the air and stabbed at the cocoon. Since they could not directly pierce through the divine power, they would wait for Lu Yin to come out before attacking. The guard of truth and falsehood could not be avoided. Within the cocoon, the three colors constantly changed, and outside, the feather god spears were also constantly attacking. The number of attacks was much more than the first time he had injured Lu Yin. Ming Yu did not believe that this human could not be killed with so many attacks. No matter how dense this person's divine power was, he would not be able to withstand the attacks of so many feather god spears at the same time. Die, die, die. Within the cocoon, Lu Yin's eyes widened as he looked at the feather god spears outside. If this was the first time he had used the three-colored divine power transformation, he might have been able to withstand it. When he fought against the mud blade, he did not have any techniques to block it. He just had to face it head-on and rely on his divine power to make himself invincible. But at this moment, his last bit of rationality told him that if he continued to resist, he would most likely die. There were simply too many feather god spears. He could withstand 10 at a time, but if there were 100, 1,000, or even more, how could he withstand it? On his forehead, the celestial eye stared at Mingyu, and the cocoon slowly faded away. Mingyu's eyes widened. Here it comes, die. Suddenly Mingyu could not move. Black jumping wires of different lengths had appeared beside him at some point, making it difficult for him to move. What is this? Lu Yin teleported in front of Mingyu, and countless specks of light lit up around him. The guard of truth and falsehood had an unprecedented number of attacks. The starry sky was completely destroyed. These feather god spears completely enveloped Lu Yin, making it difficult for him to dodge. But at this moment, Mingyu was in front of Lu Yin. Mingyu could not move, and because of its large size, it could block all the attacks from the feather god spears in front of him. As for behind him, there was the external pupil avatar, the 15 black armor plates, and the boiling divine power. The glaring light drowned out the starry sky, bringing a bright spot of light to this dark and deep space. Mingyu let out a shrill cry. Its huge body had taken half of the attacks from the feather god spears, and even its body could not withstand them all. Blood splattered across the starry sky, and the feathers on its body were torn apart. The screams terrified the strange birds under the xianxia tree. Lu Yin was not in a good state either. Even with the 15 black armor plates blocking for him, his body had taken about a fifth of the feather god spear's attacks. Half of his body had been torn apart, and if not for his vigorous divine power, it would not have been as simple as being torn apart. He would have been annihilated. There were too many feather god spears. Mingyu wanted to kill Lu Yin in one go, but it did not expect to take half of them. When the feather god spear's attacks were over, Lu Yin turned around and struck Mingyu with his palm. At that moment, a huge beak suddenly appeared. It came from the eternal level flying bird that had been guarding the xianxia tree all this time. Now it had made its move. Lu Yin waved his hand, and a beam of divine power swept across the starry sky, severely injuring the flying bird. Ordinary eternal level beings could not withstand Lu Yin's bombardment of divine power. A wave of energy came from afar. Its target was not Lu Yin but Mingyu. This wave of energy came from the immortal master. The single energy art condensed the energy of life into a single wave of energy that struck Mingyu. It sent Mingyu flying out of the range of the black lines that were enveloped by the immobilization crow. Mingyu's body was sent flying in a sorry state. His eyes stared at Lu Yin as he cried out, "Ten-eyed crow. This is the power of the ten-eyed crow." Lu Yin looked at Mingyu. Mingyu suddenly closed his eyes. "I can't look at the eye on this person's forehead. Bug, kill him." The immortal master made his move. He really did not want to fight Lu Yin, and he did not expect Mingyu to be so severely injured. Even though he had borrowed Mingyu's own strength, it still showed that Lu Yin's strength was too much, too terrifying. Could he not look at the eye on Lu Yin's forehead? The immortal master went all out as soon as he attacked. Countless xianxia plants grew in the xianxia realm, and the vitality was 100 times more majestic. The single energy art blasted toward Lu Yin. Lu Yin was too familiar with the immortal master's methods. The immortal master himself did not know that he had fought with Lu Yin before. Lu Yin raised his arms and blasted the single energy art with one hand and Mingyu with the other. Two rainbows of divine power pierced through the starry sky. The single energy art was directly blasted away by the rainbows of divine power. Mingyu teleported away and appeared beside the immortal master. She stabbed the feather god spear at Lu Yin. Lu Yin teleported and appeared above their heads at the same time. Mingyu and the immortal master teleported away at the same time. One came from himself while the other came from Luo Chan. The immortal master avoided Lu Yin and used the 9 revolutions xuanhuan to suppress the huge xianxia plants. Mingyu raised his sharp claws and descended. The distance between them was replaced. Lu Yin looked up. His drowned rationality forced him to kill crazily, but his remaining rationality also told him that it was time. He released the karma heavenly Tao. Above his head, the xianxia plants and the sharp claws blocked Lu Yin, as well as the immortal master and Mingyu's vision. Lu Yin raised his hand and faced the immortal master. "Tao sword, come out." Whoosh. The Tao sword emerged from the immortal master's body and slashed at Mingyu. This was completely different from the Tao sword that Lu Yin had slashed out before. The previous Tao sword had only used a small amount of karma, and it had been quickly unleashed. Its purpose was to make Mingyu hesitate, and at the same time to make him forget the karma in that instant, giving Lu Yin a chance. This Dao sword had consumed a vast amount of karma. If Lu Yin had wanted to consume a vast amount of karma to unleash this Dao sword, he would not have had enough time and would have been seen through by Mingyu. However, Mingyu would never have imagined that the immortal master would have such a Dao sword. He stared at Lu Yin, not expecting the Dao sword to slash at him from the side. He was instantly struck by the Dao sword. His eyes widened, but they were filled with confusion. His body's aura rapidly declined. Lu Yin did not know what kind of karma had been severed, but the power of karma unleashed by this Dao sword was enough to reduce Mingyu's strength by half a level. If he was lucky, he might even be reduced by an entire level. The sharp claws paused, and Lu Yin took this opportunity to teleport in front of Mingyu. He looked into his celestial eye. At this moment, Mingyu had even forgotten that Lu Yin had crow immobilization and was frozen in place. Lu Yin raised a hand, grabbed Go Lien, and compressed his boiling god force into it before slashing at it. Behind him, the immortal master stared blankly at this scene. He was also dumbfounded as the Dao sword had come out from his body. He had seen it and sensed it. As expected, he had been inexplicably injured because of this person. This person had buried the power of karma in his body. At this moment, the immortal master felt as if his life was under Lu Yin's control, and he did not even dare to attack. If Lu Yin could bury a Dao sword in his body, then he could bury a second one. With a hiss, Mingyu opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. A huge slash wound ran along his head and nearly tore his body apart. Lu Yin slashed at him again, and the pain stimulated Mingyu. He regained his senses and wanted to teleport away, but he could not move at all under crow immobilization. Lu Yin slashed at Go Lien again and again, and Mingyu's body was torn apart. Blood and flesh stuck to feathers as Mingyu let out a mournful wail. He looked at Lu Yin and the stunned immortal master. "Why aren't you attacking? A bug?" The immortal master looked at Lu Yin's back, and an indescribable chill enveloped him. He did not know what to do. Chapter 4380. In the distance, the eternal level bird turned around and fled. Lu Yin's Go Lien viciously stabbed into Mingyu's body, piercing right through it. Mingyu's aura weakened to the extreme. "If you don't want to be hunted down by Xianling, then kill those things," Lu Yin growled. Of course, his words were directed at the immortal master. The immortal master was conflicted. At his level, he had never imagined that he would encounter such a situation one day. Lu Yin barked, "Otherwise I'll kill you. You have more than one path sword in your body." Immortal took the initiative and got Luo Chan to teleport it to chase after the strange birds. Luo Chan trembled. It was a tool used by Xianling to keep an eye on the immortal master, but it was also a bug. At this moment, it did not know who it should listen to. The main point was that Mingyu was already in such a state and was definitely going to die. What should it do? It did not know either. Escape? It could escape, but it couldn't. It couldn't leave the immortal master. Lu Yin had used the Dao sword to control the immortal master's fate. Xianling had also used the Luo Chan to control the immortal master's fate. The immortal master couldn't shake off any of them. It all depended on who was above and who was below. Lu Yin pulled the Go Lien back, causing its scarlet blood to drip down. He raised the Go Lien and placed it on Mingyu's neck. At this moment, Mingyu's aura was unstable and he could be killed at any moment. Go Lien's blade slashed into Mingyu's neck. Lu Yin stared at Mingyu. "You are the strongest creature I've faced so far. If it wasn't for the immortal master, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to you. However, it's all over now. You are the first and definitely not the last. Xianling, you must die." After saying this, Go Lien slashed backwards, cutting Mingyu's neck in half, putting Mingyu on the brink of death. Then it threw Mingyu into Mount Supreme. It still wanted to increase its own karma, but time was of the essence, and no one knew when the final battle on Zhizong's side would end. Lu Yin turned to look at the immortal plume tree. The Qinghe realm had already spread out and enveloped all the creatures that were guarding the immortal plume tree. However, the immortal master was still hesitant when he made his move. Lu Yin took a deep breath. He couldn't deactivate the tricolor transformation just yet. Once he did, it would be difficult for him to move. His injuries this time were more serious than the last time he fought with Mud Blade. With that thought in mind, Lu Yin teleported and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in the Qinghe realm, facing the strange bird that had reached the eternal level. "Immortal Master, you dare to betray Xianling? Xianling will not let you off," that strange bird shouted. The immortal master was sullen. Xianling controlled his life, but so did Lu Yin. Before he could finish his thoughts, divine power pierced through the void and tore a hole in the Qinghe realm, shocking the immortal master. The eternal level bird was heavily injured. Lu Yin casually picked it up and threw it into Mount Supreme. Every eternal level creature was very precious. Then he continuously teleported, slaughtering the birds that were guarding the immortal plume tree. Every time he teleported, a bird would be killed and countless creatures would wither into rain. Although these creatures were as insignificant as ants in front of the immortal plume tree, it still caused a blood-red rain that dyed many leaves red. Lu Yin put Go Lian away as the final bird died in front of him, its corpse falling to the ground. He turned to look at the immortal master. The immortal master was silent, not saying anything. Lu Yin teleported to the top of the immortal plume tree again. He looked down at the tree and raised his hand. A rainbow of God force came crashing down, intending to shatter the immortal plume tree. However, the immortal plume tree's toughness was beyond Lu Yin's expectations, and it was actually comparable to the defenses of a powerhouse who had fused with two of the universe's laws. At this moment, Lu Yin had expended a lot of his godly power, so he was unable to completely destroy it. Fortunately, he found the broken transparent sword. It probably belonged to that transparent unknown entity. Lu Yin grabbed it. There was still divine power lingering on the transparent sword. This divine power was gentler than any other divine power that Lu Yin had ever sensed. It was strangely gentle. If divine power was like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins, then this divine power was like a tamed horse. Divine power was still divine power, but its nature had changed. At this moment, Lu Yin was still overwhelmed by divine power. It was hard for him to think too much. He gripped the sword hilt tightly and tricolored divine power lingered in his body. From top to bottom he slashed. A huge crack split the entire immortal plume tree from top to bottom. The immortal master looked on in shock. The immortal plume civilization had always lived on this tree. Now it was split apart by humans. He knew a little about the grudge between the immortal plume tree and humans. Was this karma? Lu Yin gripped the sword hilt tightly as he recalled the scenes he knew. The immortal plume tree danced happily in the sky above the stronghold, forcing countless people to die tragically. This blood debt had just begun. With a low roar, the immortal plume tree was split into two. The transparent sword in his hand shattered as well. The moment the immortal plume tree was split apart, the entire universe changed in front of Lu Yin's eyes. In an instant he saw a huge tree that filled the entire space. It was boundlessly far away, and he saw many other mother trees connected to it. He saw that the entire universe was enveloped by some kind of power, and he also saw a huge river that traversed the starry sky. But in an instant, everything returned to normal. Was that an illusion? He looked at the split tree, raised his hand and touched it. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Regardless of whether this tree belonged to the immortal plume tree, there was nothing wrong with the tree itself. His heart suddenly trembled, and an unprecedented amount of green light appeared from the tree and surged into the starry sky above Lu Yin's heart. He had never absorbed so many green light spots from a single mother tree. It could even be said that none of the green light spots he had absorbed before could compare to this one. The green light spots were like countless fireflies that flew into the starry sky above his heart. They merged with the green light spots from before and formed a green ribbon in the starry sky. Lu Yin looked at the green ribbon and thought of the nirvana tree technique. With the tree as the source, the branches would spread out. In the starry sky above his heart, the green light spots gradually took the shape of a tree under Lu Yin's control. Although the nirvana tree technique had been created by him, Lu Yin had yet to cultivate it. It wasn't time yet. He was waiting for a feeling where success would follow naturally. However, that feeling had never appeared. Now that feeling had appeared. The green light spots gave him the feeling of a tree, as if he should use those green light spots to form a tree. Previously, he had taught every cultivator that cultivated the nirvana tree technique to be a single green light spot, but he was going to consume all of it. As the tree gradually took shape, Lu Yin spread out his arms. His entire body seemed to fuse with something as a warm current flowed into his limbs and bones. He didn't know what this warm current was, but it had appeared. It was as if someone was watering him and allowing him to grow. It was comfortable, a comfort that he had never experienced before. It was as if he had been immersed in the source of life. His body was transforming, and he could feel the void collapsing as his arms slowly moved. What a powerful force. It was twice or even 3 times stronger than before. Suddenly the green light spots dissipated. Lu Yin's eyes went wide as he exhaled. That was it? He had failed. He had actually failed to cultivate the Nirvana tree technique. Even with so many green light spots, he still hadn't succeeded? How many more green light spots were there? He raised his hand to take a look, but the transformation of his body had not disappeared. It had only stopped. Although it had only been a short time, his strength had increased greatly in that short period of time. His body's endurance had also increased greatly. If he fought Clay Blade and Mingyu in this state, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. He wouldn't have to rely on his divine power to defend himself. He looked down, it was time to leave. Thump. Lu Yin's heart suddenly thumped, and his pupils shrank as he trembled. An indescribable tremor made his scalp feel like it was about to explode. Something was coming. He teleported to the Immortal Master's side. Let's go. Luo-chan teleported and disappeared. He didn't know how far she had gone, but he had to leave this place first. Just now, the Immortal Master had also felt an indescribable terror. Something was coming. In the moment that Lu Yin and the Immortal Lord vanished, an egg slowly floated up from within the Immortal Plume Tree. Its surface was covered with complex gray veins, and as soon as it appeared, the entire starry sky trembled. The rain of blood that had spilled down froze and time seemed to stop. A sharp claw pierced through the eggshell, and the stars turned upside down. The Immortal Plume Tree, which had been split apart, suddenly merged together. It was as if time had reversed. No, it changed. A low voice sounded. The claw tapped the void and the feather god's spear disappeared. Jizong was still fighting fiercely. It was unclear whether the unknown had surrounded the Immortal Plume or if the Immortal Plume had restrained the unknown. A feather god's spear descended and pierced through Jizong. The old man Yu Che and the others all stopped and looked at the feather god's spear. Red Hero was in front of the divine tree, holding a red umbrella. At this moment, his face was deathly pale. A long-lost fear surfaced in his heart. That old monster was still alive. The unknown had lied to him. It wasn't just the unknown, even the Immortal Plume trees were trembling. How did the ancestor wake up? Oh no, something is wrong with this tree. Return. The Immortal Plume trees disappeared instantly, and Jizong regained its calm. This feeling? Is it that old monster? I didn't expect that old monster to still be alive. 8 colors, you lied to me. It's still alive. Red Hero was furious. It's really troublesome. Alive. It's really not easy to deal with. It's just an old thing that's past its prime. If it could die once, it can die again now. Jiolei actually didn't kill it. I feel sorry for the humans. With this old thing around, there won't be any humans left in the square-inch space. In the square-inch space, Lu Yin panted heavily and suppressed the palpitations in his heart. He looked at the Immortal Master and asked, "What was that?" The Immortal Master was also afraid. I don't know. It must be the Immortal Plume. It's a hidden terrifying existence. You don't know? Lu Yin didn't believe it. The feeling that the existence just now gave him was no less than old ancestor Shan's last attack. It was even more unfathomable. It was an abyss that he had never experienced before. It was too terrifying. There was actually such a terrifying old thing in the Immortal Plume trees. The Immortal Master said bitterly, I really don't know. If I knew I would. He didn't say anything but Lu Yin believed him. If the Immortal Master knew that there was such an old monster in the Immortal Plume trees, he wouldn't have betrayed Lu Yin even if his life was in Lu Yin's hands. That would be courting death. The one who regretted it the most now was the Immortal Master. He had betrayed Xian Plume and would definitely die. After all, he could be caught by Xian Plume. Luo-chan was also trembling at this moment, but it was slightly better than the Immortal Master. Its cultivation was too low, and it didn't know how terrifying the existence just now was. Lu Yin looked at the Immortal Master. Do you regret it? The Immortal Master fell silent. This wasn't the time to express regret. If you gave up on Luo-chan, would you still be found by Xian Plume? Lu Yin asked. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.